Good afternoon, everybody. It's July 17th, 2017. It's 2:30, and we're convening a board meeting at our offices in Gaithersburg. We just started, Dave. Perfect timing. We have a quorum. Let me just make two statements. One, Margaret got ill this morning, and all our thoughts are with her. We know that she's going for testing now, and our thoughts and best wishes are with her. Secondly, I just want to say this is our first meeting since Gracie resigned, and I just want to put on the record, and if anybody else wants to put on the record, I just want to pay tribute to her years of dedication and work on this board. Gracie Rivera Oven has been serving on the board for years, dedicated, enthusiastic, a leader, and showed great leadership in promoting and protecting and safeguarding, especially voting rights for and accessibility for people with disabilities and handicap issues, and the minority community. She was a leader in her concerns for their accessibility and interpretations. And I know we all want to thank her and wish her well for all the years of service. She did an excellent job for us, and we all wish her well in the future. Does anybody else want to?
Well, I certainly second everything that you said, Jim. And Gracie and I came on the board together a little over 6 years ago, and I always found her extremely helpful. And she really spearheaded a lot of issues, especially related to our work with translation.
Yes.
And checking everything, and was very, very helpful. Like you, I wish her the best of everything. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of her, and I hope not.
And she always had a big smile, even when our debates got heated. She always had a big smile, and I personally will miss that. She was a lovely person. Is a lovely person. Yeah. Okay. Dave, did you want to?
Yeah, if I could just add that Gracie, I joined the board about 3 weeks after Marianne and Gracie, and she was a great colleague, and really she was an advocate for reaching out to all aspects of the community. And I very much admire her for that, and hope to carry the torch for that.
Thank you, David. Okay.
May I say something, Jim, about Allison and what a wonderful job she did on the Mako conference. She's an officer, and she had a great deal to do with that. And it was a delightful, wonderful, interesting, stimulating conference, and run exceptionally well. And a great deal of that having to do with Allison, and I think we should be proud that she's working with us.
Yes, and today she's in Denver at a conference, representing our board. So we're missing Margaret and Allison, but I agree with everything you said. So we're gonna make some changes to our agenda. But first, let's approve the minutes from June 19th, 2017. As amended, as there a
I
motion?
move we accepted, except that page second, that comment D1, I don't think it's necessary. I will accept
D1 or
it.
D2?
I will amend it before that. Yeah, we always use names. We always as well.
So wait, you want to approve it, but not with comments D1?
D2, I guess it would be the
Is
edit.
it D2?
The edit
the
on
comment?
who was present in the room and who left.
D2?
Yeah, but it's on page 2 of the
Yeah, it's a page 2.
Mr. Naaman.
It's not necessary,
Lisa,
because
what
we
is that?
always use names. Go ahead.
Lisa,
Yes.
what does that mean, that box? Is that something that someone suggested we put in, or?
Yes, it was a board member who suggested that
David
we,
Mick.
Okay.
I guess specifically not identify the names of
Yeah.
individuals.
Of
but be able to,
non-board members. No, in other words, it's one thing for us to say when board members arrive and leave, because that actually affects our quorum, it affects whether substitute members can vote, etc. But it's a totally different thing to refer to non. I mean, in this case, to guests who were signed in. We had a number of guests who were here at different times during that meeting, and to indicate that we excused particular people
Okay.
also implies
All right.
that we allowed
Thank you,
everyone else
David.
to stay in.
Okay, from now on, don't mention any name.
Okay.
So
No,
the minutes
no
which read,
I have seen it in the
Yeah.
past, however.
Yeah, I have
we-
seen
we-
it in the
we-
past.
We've mentioned the name.
And typically, it's
I don't
done
feel
when
strongly.
Right.
we're going into executive session to
Right.
clarify who's
They
actually
always
attending
use
the
them.
meeting.
If that's-
but for,
Well,
but for,
And
for
there
today,
are often times where there's several people, and it's unfortunate, but I cannot keep track of what time
Right.
everybody
Right.
so for today, what's
Right.
the amendment? All guests and staff other than those listed were
Right.
excused?
My point is that there are 5 guests who are listed in the minutes. And we are indicating that 2 of them were asked to
Okay.
be excused.
No,
which-
because
which
the
would
other
imply
left, the time which we asked, those 2 only were present. Not
Right,
all
but
the
nowhere in
guests.
the minutes does it say that.
Well, you could also put Ms. Kildee and Ms. Saunders, who were in attendance
Or were
at the
only other
time,
in attendance.
you know, were excused.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I would.
I
be in
mean,
favor.
I guess that would cover
You-
it.
Be clarified. I
You
think
could.
all of you are right. To
Doesn't
me,
matter
it
to
needs
me.
to be clarified how you do it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me, whatever you want, I mean. So
Okay.
where are we?
All guests and staff.
I
I
move the
I just
amendment.
wouldn't want to leave the implication that we had an executive session that the chair of the Democratic Party attended. Because I know that that didn't happen, but he's listed as one of our guests. He is not listed as someone who was excused from the room. He wasn't here at the time.
That's right.
But I think that our minutes should clearly reflect, I mean, and I don't have a problem either way, either not naming people. I think that's the easiest because then it's not up to Lisa to
Okay,
keep track of everybody.
I
you know.
suggest in the future, do not mention the name of the guest. Whether they left, they stay, they're going to stay here for overnight, anything like that.
Could the guests still be, I'm sorry, may I take this?
Sure.
In the front? They could still be
Just
identified in
in
the front?
Oh,
front. Yeah.
absolutely.
Just not
they
leaving
should.
it
That,
in control.
yes,
Yeah.
but when you said so and so left, just don't
Okay.
say that.
How about we suggest that Ms. Kildee and Ms. Sanders, who were the only guests then in attendance, you know,
Yeah, but I'm talking about
Oh, I
the
see.
future.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the future. All right.
I don't care.
I don't care either. I mean, I think saying all guests and staff, other than
Covers it.
those
I think that
listed were
covers it.
excused, that's fine. And we're going to continue that into the
Yeah,
future then.
right.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you so
So
much.
the motion is
So-
as amended?
so-
Motion is amended.
So you've moved to accept them as amended?
Yes.
I'll
And then for
second.
the future, we clarify.
Mr. President, I just noticed a typo on pages 4 and 5. I think it should be FOIA instead of FIOA, assuming that I wasn't here, but it was a freedom of information
Yeah,
request
yes.
from Mr. Karpinski.
Yes, good,
Good catch.
thanks.
What
Yes.
was it?
Yeah, it's just a,
Oh.
any other
That's correct.
amendments
Good-
or
good eye.
discussion?
Any other?
What, did anybody second it?
I did.
Okay,
She seconded.
so all those in favor as amended, say aye.
Aye.
No one opposed? Okay. All right, regarding the agenda, Margaret's not here, so in terms of the election director report, we have...
Jim, if I could just interject.
Sure.
Again, I wasn't here, but if Mr. Karpinski has the FOIA request, I'd certainly like to get a copy of it, unless maybe, I don't know if it was distributed or not.
It was at the last meeting, I
Was it?
think.
The
But I'll
FOIA
make sure
request?
that board
No, I
members get a
don't
copy.
think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Because this was separate from Judicial Watch, right? This was the
Yeah.
U.S. Public Interest or Public
Yeah.
Interest Research Group?
Yeah.
I will make sure you get it.
Distributed prior to that,
I think it was distributed at some point. I
It
think.
was,
in,
yes.
in some form.
In some
I
form,
might
but
have missed it.
I'll make sure I get it out there.
So many,
Oh, my Lord.
So they're
Sounds like my hearing test.
replacing and changing what's the name?
Railings?
The railings. The railings outside on our balcony.
Thank you,
And it's
Lisa.
5 to 6 weeks
Someone
work.
really doesn't want us to meet today with everybody not here.
So on the election report, we'll just hear from Margie on the budget.
okay.
We can run
we're
through this,
changing
I
the,
guess.
We
the
do have a public
agenda,
comment.
right?
Okay.
Jim? We're changing the agenda.
Well, Margaret's not here.
Yes.
Margie's here to talk about the budget, but, I
Okay.
mean, a comment, we can run through it, yeah.
All right. you want-
She submitted her report.
report,
yeah, she did.
I think, yeah.
I mean, if there's something you want to talk about, no problem. Okay, we have public comments,
We do have a
Lisa?
public comment.
Okay.
Mr. Epstein, are you there?
Okay,
Sit here, address the board if you like.
Sure.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Welcome.
How are you?
Hi. How are you? Good to see you. My name is Jim Epstein. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Sure.
I am I have been, I should say, for several cycles, the chief judge, both at Holiday Park and at Wheaton for early voting. So the reason I'm here today is because I know that there are some issues about where there will be a Wheaton early voting center, or if there will be one. So I'm here to say, first and foremost, obviously we strongly encourage you to maintain a site in Wheaton. I guess I understand that the library and rec center will not be ready. The library is currently in the ballroom, and I don't know if, in fact, there is consideration of collapsing the library during that time frame to continue using that ballroom as opposed to I did go online and saw that your recommendations currently have been, or you're considering either Holiday Park for an early voting center or a corridor in Wheaton Plaza, which I don't believe is quite adequate, but that's a separate issue. So my first and foremost reason for being here is to thank you and to encourage that we need an early voting site in Wheaton. We had, on the average, about 2,000 people a day in early voting last time. We probably don't expect that same number this time around. Nonetheless, we need a facility in that area. It's an underserved area in general, as we all know. Secondly, what I'd like to say is that I have not been to Holiday Park since they've redone the flooring. But having worked there for several cycles and looking at your suggested layout on the ground, on the website, I have some concerns because it's a tight space. I would encourage us to utilize it if there is no other space because we need some presence in Wheaton. Nonetheless, it is a tight space. And the layout that was suggested is different than the normal layout that we have used in the past during the regular cycle of voting. So I will just leave it at that. Obviously, I'd rather have it there than nowhere. The concern is that we have something in the area.
You have any suggestions?
Well, I do, actually.
Yeah.
One of the capacities that I'm currently involved in, and I should do my PR work briefly, and I don't mean to take up much of your time, but I am one of the main organizers for the first annual Wheaton Arts Parade and Festival coming up in September in Wheaton to celebrate, if I may hand these out, and I have more, but it is to celebrate Wheaton as an arts and entertainment district. And as we all know, there's a lot of revitalization going on down there. We won't discuss that. Nonetheless, one of my capacities as an organizer for the Wheaton Arts Parade is that we do have a space that was given to us that is larger than Holiday Park, that is better than the corridor that I saw was recommended, I guess must be by the Dicks over in the Wheaton Mall. It has more than ample parking. It has ADA, but it has a ramp, so it should be ADA compliant. It has a great electioneering area that does not necessarily require people to enter into the mall, so that's a good thing. It is a large square footage area, and the reason I'm familiar with it is because it is now temporarily the arts factory for the Wheaton Arts Parade and Festival, which has been very kindly donated to us. So we have the utilization of this space through our event, which is the end of September. And if that space is not leased out, then our goal is to continue to maintain it as a year-round arts facility and studio temporarily until the Wheaton Cultural Center is developed in the redevelopment area, which is, again, a whole separate conversation.
Where exactly is it?
Did I miss you saying where it is?
No, you didn't. I didn't mention
okay.
it.
No.
Thank you. I was keeping it strong.
The reason I'm withholding that is to say that we don't have control over what happens after we're out. It is attached on the back side of the Wheaton Mall area. It is walking distance, accessible to Metro. It is accessible to a lot of parking.
You mean the backside where the Target entrance is?
No, ma'am. So if you're familiar with that mall,
Yeah.
And you know there's an entrance where the Wendy's is?
Okay.
Down across from the bus bays
Off of
on
Veers
Veers
Mill. On that
Mill,
side,
right at the Veers Mill, Georgia
Okay.
T, or V, or whatever you want to call it there, split. And the Metro bus bays are there. There's an entrance into that mall area that has an LA Fitness on the south corner there, and then there are the AMC movie theaters on the back
On the
side.
back.
If you're facing the backside, and as you know, there's not a lot of traffic there, there's a lot of parking there, and the parking that's used there right now is for the LA Fitness and for the movie theaters. If you're physically looking at the space, you would see and I have probably some pictures available for you, but you would see the movie theaters on the left-hand side that recently got renovated, and you'd see a stairwell going up to the next level where Ana Mendez is and Bar Louie. And then there's an old cosmetology school that used to be the bays for storage for Circuit City. On the front side of the mall, it's the Ana Mendez University. On the back side there of that building is the old cosmetology school, which was abandoned by that cosmetology school, that now the management at the mall has graciously allowed us to use as an arts factory for artists that are developing floats for the parade and festival.
You're on the first floor?
It is on the equivalent of what would be called the first floor. It is a single floor building in that regard,
And you
but
walk
there's a
in the
ramp
door.
and there
You
are
walk
some
in the
steps.
door
Yes, there
without
are
steps.
There are a couple of steps there, and there's also a ramp. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And then it's a big, huge space. If you want to envision it, there's an area as you walk in the hall to the right, which is a large space. Then there's a big, open, huge, and I don't know the square footage. I could probably get you the square footage. There's a big, huge, open square footage area that could easily be used for this particular project. And then there are 2 rooms in the back that could be used as storage, breakout rooms. There are several unused classrooms and things along that line. We are in communication, obviously, with the management firm there. And I know that they have offered you the corridor, which, to be honest with you, is horrendous. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I'm speaking here just as an individual.
That's very helpful.
It's not secure. You got a lot of people walking through, not for that purpose. That's actually an area that they've offered us possibly where they're going to sponsor a mural contest for art in the mall. So again, I believe your layout only showed 12 voting units there as opposed to, I think, 20 some odd in Holiday Park. And actually this facility would be even larger and could accommodate more. So naturally there'd have to be conversations with the management firm there to see if that space will be leased out. If it's not leased out, what kind of an arrangement they might work with you. Our goal is to keep it as an art space until it gets leased out. So if you're nice to us, we might allow you to come in and use it for a week or 2.
Well, I guess that was going to be my next question. If you all are still using it for arts purposes, would we have a problem?
No, you wouldn't. We would shut it down for that week. Again, having been a chief judge at Wheaton for several cycles, I'm familiar with what it takes. I think you guys only go in the day before and clear out the day after, but even if you wanted it, to be quite honest with you, there's a lot of classroom space. If you wanted to hold trainings in the down county area, in addition to at the Civic Building in Silver Spring, this would be another wonderful facility that could be available. There is a second level of 2 classrooms and an office up on the second level that you have to go up some stairs to, but that would be good for staff or training and things along that line. So I throw it out to you. The bottom line is, please make sure you maintain something in Wheaton that is workable. Having worked it in the old rec center, having worked at Kennedy High School, having worked at Holiday Park, having worked at the different facilities, we need something in that area.
Thank
Refsky,
you very
what do you
much.
call this place?
The Arts Factory.
The Arts Factory, no, that's correct. It's
Very
the
nice.
old beauty school that was there.
Very helpful. Thank you, David.
My pleasure.
You have a business card?
I do.
Yeah, I have a question.
Certainly.
How does, you said that there's like a main floor area when you walk in. How does the size of that area compare to the ballroom at the rescue squad where we were before?
Total square footage would be, I believe, larger than what's at the ballroom upstairs on the second level. Accessibility would be better. Parking would be better. The breakout is a little bit different. There is one large, big square area that we could use, and then there's another smaller room that's also pretty large that could be used, and that's what we're using for building sets and props and floats and all that kind of stuff. But I believe that it's overall more square footage than either of the other facilities that you've been looking at. And if you want any other information, I'd be more than happy to
Thank you.
pass
This
it
is
along.
very helpful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else on public comment? Lisa?
Lisa?
No, sir, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're going to go to the election director report. Marge, you want to do the budget, and then Mary Ann, you wanted to go through some, but,
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
Yes, I'll be happy to do the budget.
oh,
Sorry, multitasking.
yes.
I'm getting too old to do that effectively, and I apologize to the board.
It's okay.
Okay. There are two things for budget discussion. First is the FY17 operating budget. We are now in FY18. However, we won't have anything to report on that until next month because we're still in the first month. At the beginning of July, I ran this report on July 5th, and we had about $4,000 left in the budget. Since then, payroll hit. We have one more payroll that I'm anticipating, and so I am gathering from the information that I can ascertain from various departments. We're probably going to be looking at between a $200,000 and a $250,000 deficit, all told. So we still have payroll coming in. We still have some chargebacks from the county related to the election judge module maintenance, as well as print shop and mail. I know there were some small office supplies that were ordered that did not hit before this ran. So while this looks very promising, we'll see another one next month, and it's probably going to be around $250,000, which is much less of a deficit than we anticipated. We were able to encumber all of the funds that were allocated to the state budget line items so that we'll be able to pay that final invoice. It has come in, and it is under review. There are a couple items on there that we need to double check with the state on, and people have been on vacation. So we're waiting to pay that until we're able to check on that. And other than that, I would be happy to answer any questions you have on FY17.
are we still all state for program management, or that's it, 614,000?
When you see those yellow lines, which are the state line items, you'll see that year to date is the full amount of the amount allocated. That's because the full amount was encumbered. So we have not necessarily paid that full amount to the state, but it is available to us, whatever the remaining balance was. And so yes, there are definitely some additional program management charges.
Dave?
Was the bill from the state in the range that you were expecting?
No.
And?
Yes, she takes
No, and
you'd be a great witness.
Perfect answer to a
Just
deposition
say-
question.
No. Yes, exactly. Okay. Was it higher or lower than what you expected?
It was lower than we anticipated, than what we were told to anticipate. However, there are some things missing from it, we believe, and so that's why we haven't paid it yet, because we're waiting to see. As an example, the additional scanners that were provided to us, we've not seen our charge for that yet, and so it was less than we anticipated, but I don't believe it's the final. So
there's some charges
that's
that
why
have
I'm
not,
kind of caging my answer on that.
that haven't even been encumbered yet, right, that we're expecting.
The funds have all been encumbered, but we haven't seen an invoice that reflects everything we were anticipating it would.
So anything else that comes in from the state at this point
We
would
can
just
still
add
pay.
it to the deficit, I guess, right?
Well, no, because we've already got the
allocated.
money encumbered, so it will not add to the deficit.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Margie.
Mary Ann, even though Margaret's not here, did you want to discuss?
Well, I just thought you might want to run through the other items because Jessica's here if she wants to Do voter
report.
do you have this?
I'm sorry, I did have one other budget piece.
Oh.
That was just FY17.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Do you want to, okay. All right, so we sent to you in advance a proposal, a memo from Margaret and I regarding acceptance of credit card payments
Yes.
and a fee increase. And so I just wanted to discuss this a little bit with you, see if anybody had any questions, what the feeling of the board was on this. We have had several requests this year from candidates as to why we don't accept credit card payments when they come into file. And so at Margaret's request, based on that, I met with people in the Department of Finance to find out what would be involved for the Board of Elections to start accepting credit card payments from individuals for anything that we would be selling, our maps, our voter files, etc. And it's very easy to set up, but of course, as we all know from dealing with businesses, there is a percentage that's tacked on to every charge that's made that is charged to us. And there's also an exchange fee. Exchange fee may not be the exchange fee is the percentage. Then there's a $15 fee every month that is charged to the department, regardless of whether we take in any credit card payments or not. And so when I shared this with Margaret, I shared with her the fact that I thought with the budget situation that we are always in here, that I didn't really feel that we could take the hit for those additional charges. And so I recommended that some fees would be increased, not by a tremendous amount, to try to recover some of the costs that we would be incurring to make it a little bit more convenient for the people who do business with us. And so on...
And that cost is what we have to pay the credit card companies, their fee.
Right, and it would not recover all of our costs by any stretch. And so the proposal really was, well, first and foremost, that we would not accept credit cards for anything under $5. So if somebody's coming in to get a $5. So if somebody comes in to pick up a new voter registration card or a single map.
Why that low? Just go higher, because you're paying fees. $5?
Well, this is what the county recommended. Because there are other county agencies that will accept credit cards for $5 or greater. So this is standard for the county.
Margaret, is this a year-round, or is it only at Margie, I'm sorry, or only at election time?
No, this if we take credit cards, we would be able to do it. We would do it. We can't turn it on and off. We can't turn it on and off.
I get that. How much call is there to do it year-round?
There's going to be some probably peak periods. Year-round, there's not going to be any.
So we're paying $15 a month for months that might not have any usage at all.
That is correct. That is correct.
Right.
So we have to think of it as $120 a year, not $15 a month.
And is it $15 per type of credit card, or is that to a central place?
No, it is just $15, one $15 charge.
Okay, it's not.
And we would be
Visa
able to
okay.
accept all credit cards.
Okay.
And so the items that Margaret and I discussed that were on here as a recommendation to increase were the voter registration CD, which is currently at $78, a slight increase in that to $82. And it's very rarely asked for, but we do provide a binder that includes all of the precinct maps. And that is currently $5.95. We would recommend increasing that to, I'm sorry, the postage for that when we mail that out is $5.95. We would recommend increasing that to $6.50. The large maps that we create, we would change from $20 to $25. And
that's the cost to us, that $25?
The $25, we would... Janet, do we know how much it costs to produce one of those? This is just, again, this is to recoup
Yeah, no,
some
I'm
of the
saying that
costs.
they can pass the cost to whoever requests this thing,
Yes.
since we are
Right.
short in budget.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other recommendation on here is a new fee that you all will probably want to consider. And that is when Janet creates the absentee labels. We provide those right now at no cost whatsoever. And it is something that takes several hours of work for our IT staff to do. And it is something that is updated to whoever, once you request it, you get an update once a week, twice a week.
Yeah.
And so it's several hours of our staff time, a couple of times a week to provide that. And currently we're not charging anything for that. And proposal would be to charge $50, a one-time fee. And they would get, 6 weeks of twice a week.
For the whole election cycle.
For the whole period of time.
It sounds like you all have put time and thought and effort in that, and I appreciate that. I think they're good suggestions. I would like to ask what the thinking was for the voter registration CD from 78 to 82. Why $4?
It was just, I looked at the larger.
Arbitrary.
It was not necessarily arbitrary, but it was based on a 3 to 4% increase, so that it would not be a huge increase. We weren't trying to increase anything tremendously. We know we're not going
is a
to,
better number.
and that's perfectly fine. We're not trying to. We know that we would not recoup all of our costs, but we feel that we would need to try to recoup some of the costs in order to make this more convenient to folks. So.
David, you have something?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Do you know how many of these in a year or an election cycle we end up doing? Like, how many voter registration CDs does the board sell in a 2-year period?
I'm looking across the room for assistance on that. Do you have an estimate?
So it depends. Right now we're in the middle of candidate filing, so we're selling a lot more than we normally would. So this month I think we've already sold 4. Any given month we might sell 1 or 2. The state also provides this information if it's requested from them, and so.
Do they charge?
Yeah,
What?
75 unless you get it on a CD at 78. So, but I think we get
So
local
we would be
candidates.
charging more than the state does.
Yeah, great. Let them get up in the
But they have more money than we have. They don't have money.
They have all different processes too for different ways that they provide data and stuff that we're not capable of doing. So they have.
It was my understanding that our CD provided a couple extra things than the state does. Janet, am I wrong in that thought?
I don't know if the state provides, but we provide like walk-in labels, walk-in list labels. So if you want to mail out a mailing, we already produce the labels. You just have to print it. It gives you the voter file of all the active voters.
There's charts.
Yeah, there's a lot of charts. There's a big read-me instructions that tells you everything that's included and what you can do with the file, what you can do with the text file to manipulate it and use it yourself.
And it's my understanding that the state information just contains the information. It doesn't contain all the extra labels and things, unless they've changed that in the last few months.
I believe the state does not provide as much as we provide, as I remember.
Do we know how many of the all precinct binders?
The binders, we don't sell that many of.
Because part of my question there is that the increase that's there, it's only a 55-cent increase, but it's listed under postage. And I guess my question is, has the cost of postage gone up, or is that just a convenient place for us to put our money?
Well, the cost of postage has gone up. None of these fees, the last fee that was increased was the cost of the CD, and that fee was increased, I had it in here, it was in 2009. None of the other fees have been increased since 2009. And so postage costs certainly have increased
but
since
my question is,
2009.
what does it cost? What is the actual amount that the U.S. Postal Service charges us to send out that binder?
We have not sent one out recently, so I would not be able to give you that information. I could certainly have one taken to the mailroom and have a cost estimate for you for the next meeting.
I'm just thinking that if we are going to label something as a postage cost, it should not be more than the postage cost.
Understand completely.
And if we need the revenue for some other reason, then it should be on some other line, but not on the postage line.
The postage, if you send just a small envelope, it's okay, 50 cents, 49 cents. When we mail something like that, the
It's going to be around
we don't know how much
$6.50.
it is.
I'm familiar with how postage works.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make sure that
No,
if we're gonna increase our postage charge and call it postage, I just want to make sure that we're not charging more than what the postage
That's very reasonable.
would actually be.
There's no hesitation here at all. We can get that information for you
That
for
would
the
be
next
great.
meeting.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
So what do you need from us?
Well, at this point, nothing, because we want to get some more information
Okay.
in response to David's question. And then at the September meeting, what we would need to know is whether you want to go forward with it or not. And if you do, it'll take 4 to 6 weeks to get an account set up and to be able to start taking the credit card payments. And if the board decides not to do that, we do take personal checks and cash, and we can continue to do that.
I was going to
without a
ask, do
question,
we get a lot of pushback or complaints from people? What do you mean you don't take credit cards?
I'm not so sure that we've gotten what I would call a complaint. It's been voiced to me that this year we have received numerous questions as to why we don't take credit cards, because a lot of people nowadays don't carry cash,
Or check.
and they don't
And
carry
they
their
really
checks.
don't carry checks.
This we have become a plastic.
Have you ever had a
Population.
check bounce?
Have we ever had a check bounce? Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Dan, look ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I just asked
Okay.
Lisa to put it on the agenda for next
Yeah,
September.
and when you come back, if you could also just give us a sense of the volume for these,
Sure.
for the various things that are on here, so we know how much money we're talking about total. That would be great.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So we'll revisit it in September.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, Mary Ann makes a good suggestion. Even though Margaret's not here, there are some items that we can go through on her report, like voter registration. Jessica, do you have anything for us?
So we just finished up processing the latest ERIC. We were working on that last month. To date, we have 646,734 active voters, and we have 72,926 inactive voters. 72,926. That was our numbers as of this morning.
Okay.
Jessica, I actually wanted to, and I'm happy to raise this for general discussion. I did see Mr. Popper's email that purports to respond to the arguments that was made in the state's response to Judicial Watch's letter. And, I mean, he raises some points that it would be, I think, worth looking into seeing how we can address or rebut if we can. Because his point seems to be that even taking into account the arguments we made, Montgomery County is still way up there on the list in terms of its percentage. And I don't know if we can figure out why that is. That makes it unique to...
We do a great job. We get out and do tons of outreach, and we have all these community support agencies that support our cause, and we register lots and lots of people.
Yeah.
I do think that's part of it, though. We do, our agency alone did 3 times the amount of outreach the State Department did statewide. So I do think some of it is because, while they allege it's strictly the lack of removal of voters, I think there is something to the amount of voters that do get registered in this area. And I think nationally, without getting too deep into this, you can look at areas and kind of look at an expectation of what percentage of voter age population would be registered based on, demographics of the area. And I think some of that can come into play where it's not necessarily we're doing a bad job of list maintenance to remove people. We might be doing a really good job of getting people added on too. And I think that's kind of a double-sided piece. But I agree. I mean, to your point.
This inactive 72,000, is that included those that haven't voted for years but they never returned the postcard telling you you're dead or you're moved out or anything like that?
So there is a group of people who have not otherwise
Yeah.
voted in a
Cool.
long period of time. And that all we can do is send them a specimen ballot. And if that specimen ballot does not get returned by the post office, if it gets delivered or we never see it again, they remain active.
I'm saying that so many times, I get the mail, it's not mine, I just throw it away.
That's what happens. And only about 50% of the U.S. population is estimated to use the change of address service when they move. So if they don't use change of address, or you get their mail and you toss it, and it doesn't get back to us.
So what's the solution? Maybe we should change that
Well, I
postcard,
think that's-
something. I said, if you're dead, don't worry about it. If you're not dead, whoever it is,
I think
please
that,
return it
I
back.
think what to do about that is what the Supreme
no,
Court will
you-
be deciding.
Can you talk, because we didn't get you.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta
Your
put
back
the
is
mic.
to the
If
mic.
she can stay here, talk to her. Because I'm saying that
I think that's what the Supreme Court is going to decide. That's part of what's at question is what do you do
So-
if it's outside of the list maintenance
So,
process.
Naheed, it's really what you're permitted to do under the National Voter Registration Act. And
yeah, I'm
that's-
aware of
that's
that. I'm
what-
saying that maybe we should change when we send it, put a little bit paragraph or something. I said, if you are not the person who's receiving it, please return it back
We
to us.
have.
We did that the last
We
election.
have, actually, this board is the
we
board
just
that,
did it
that,
then.
I think it
that
looks a lot
changed
better.
the
That's all you
sample
can.
ballot that put in a more prominent place in a larger lettering that if the person doesn't live here, please return it to the Board of Elections.
Did we get any more returns this time?
You know, how do you quantify getting more returns? We get a lot.
How did it compare to 2 years ago and 4 years ago?
I can look into the information and see what I can put together as far as the return source to see what we can do for. We don't have a specific label of, you know, they check the box versus other
Right.
return mail, but we can look at the rate of returns to see.
Right.
I mean, I could tell you, for instance, last month alone, just for the month of June, we sent out 20,000 residential confirmations. The month before that, 13,000. The month before that, 27,000. The month before that, 15,000. I mean, we're sending thousands of
And
confirmations.
those are to be taken off.
Those are to voters to say, hey, the post office notified us, or we got from the ERIC some notification you don't live here. Could you please clarify? And if we have an address that, you know, it's like an out-of-state forward address, then we will forward that postcard on to that other address. And if they do not respond, they become inactive.
And you talked about the 72,000 inactive. And,
Yes.
And that number will change over time, but do you have an expectation ultimately of how many of those 72,000 would actually be canceled following the inactive process and how you do that?
I mean, I hate to give the same answer I gave you, David. I can certainly do some statistics on if they don't vote, but I think you would also then need to look at the reactivation
See,
rate.
the problem,
Because
Alex,
not all of
it's
them
a-
are gonna
it's
be
a
canceled.
fluid
Some-
number.
yeah.
Right.
It's very fluid.
Yeah.
Because you've got people going from active to inactive to cancel, but you also then have new active people that may then go to inactive. So it's
And then someone is inactive could be reactivated.
Yeah,
They
Take
get
some
reactivated
kind of
Definitely.
action.
frequently, right? And a lot of reasons is because we get a piece of mail returned for some reason, and it should have went to them. I mean, I think we've all experienced that, right? You didn't get something important in the mail, and you find out it got to your neighbor or it got sent back, and we don't know why the post office did that. And so we do get those confirmations going, I didn't move. But we also know that people do move out of state, and, you know, it's probably not the top of mind thing to notify the Board of Elections that they don't live here anymore. There is a process in most states where you can put your previous registration address. In Maryland, if you do that, we enter it into the system. That goes to the state board. The state board sends it to the other state's state board, which then sends it to the local. If you imagine the number of hops that takes. So these are all processes that I think on a national level need to be evaluated to give us some clarity as to what the extent of what we can do.
But we also track how many we've actually canceled.
We
here
do.
in the county, like by year, or by month,
Correct.
or whatever it is.
Well, what we do for the inactivation cancellation, that happens after a federal election. So we'll next do it in December of 2018 and then December of 2020 from the inactive cancellations.
But, Alex, I think you do raise a good point about evaluating the response that we've gotten from Mr. Popper.
Because he raised some interesting arguments, and
I agree.
his tenor seemed to be that I've heard some of these before because they've had a lot of experience in this type of litigation posture. And if there's a way we can then reply to him, we should do it.
And I will tell you, I have a copy of the survey. The Election Assistance Commission biannually does a NVRA survey of every state. that produces statistics, and so we go through those and look at those. It's only been out a few weeks. But for instance, it lists Maryland as a confirmation response rate as 1.2%. That's simply not true. We have a much higher rate of return response to our confirmations. But because of the way questions are worded and the differences in every state, sometimes it's really hard for an agency, even like Judicial Watch, to look at those things and ascertain what's really going on in Maryland. Why is Maryland only getting 1.2%? Another state reported 70% return rate. The true number for both is somewhere in the middle, but it's not at either of those ends.
Do we know where the 1.2 came from?
I don't know, because we in Maryland, it's all done at SBE level. We don't contribute any of the data to that. But if you ever are interested, I'll send you the full survey. It's interesting the way they have to word questions to capture unique things, kind of like our response to Judicial Watch initially at the state level, that 16 and 17-year-olds are active registrants in Maryland.
Right.
Other states call it pre-registration. They put them in suspense. They call them inactive. They call them pending. So they're part of our active counts. Or they don't have it.
Yeah.
And so that stands our statistics out, but there's not really a asterisk for 50 states on this broad-based survey.
Are all of those inactive, the kids, the 17-year-olds, on the ERIC system? All of our registered voters are on ERIC, correct?
You mean the information's transacted with ERIC? You know, that's a very good question I don't know the answer to. I don't know, because again, the SBE pulls the list to be integrated with information from other states in order to match if a voter's registered in more than one state. I don't know if they would pull 16, 17-year-olds to the point that some states don't even register them that young. I don't know if there's a comparison.
So the number of registered voters in Maryland would differ, perhaps, from your statistics and ERIC's statistics.
Well, for instance, we have 8,351 16 and 17-year-olds as of today. So 646,000 voters includes over 8,000 16 and 17-year-olds.
I guess on ERIC, are we showing 646,734 active voters?
So
registered?
What happens with ERIC is the state sends out the statewide list to ERIC.
Including these inactives?
Like I said, I don't have anything to do with the project. I can certainly take these questions back and ask.
Maybe it's not. Are you saying it's not broken down by county on
Well,
ERIC?
what I'm saying is it's a giant information system that gets pushed. NBA here in Maryland pushes, and so do 20 other states. And it's all brought together, and they do a giant data match. And all we get back from ERIC is the number of voters who have a transaction date that was more recent than our last transaction date.
But what we're trying to get to,
but there is no number.
What is on ERIC? What do you send to ERIC?
We send nothing at this level. The SBE sends it.
State sends it. What do you send it? Do you send these in 72,000 inactives are on the state list also?
Well, that's Montgomery County, but it's a statewide registration system. Right.
So they, in fact, would be considered active voters as far as the state and ERIC are concerned.
Not inactive voters. But I can tell you that when we get, so what we get back is in a couple spreadsheets of information from ERIC. So one contains all the registrants who matched with an address change from NCOA. We get one with all the people who match the Social Security death master file. We get one back that's voters who have matched to an out-of-state address. And then finally we get a list of voters who've matched to an in-state address.
But you don't know what goes to them for Montgomery County.
Yes, but what happens for ERIC is they just take the data and they compare it to Virginia.
And I understand what they do with it. What I'm trying to get at is what goes to them originally.
So what I was
our
going to
active
say,
and inactive voters go to the state and they go to ERIC.
So what I was going to say is sometimes the voters are already inactive.
We can check with the state and see what the state sends because it's the state that is pulling the data from their voter registration
Thank you.
system.
And if someone asks ERIC for a list of voters,
they don't keep any information. It's not a housed database. It goes into an anonymizer and then it comes back out. But that's part of the ERIC contract is that they do not keep a database. They use some IBM supercomputer like was featured on Jeopardy. That's what they use.
What's his name?
Yeah, something like that. Exactly right.
Thanks, Jessica.
And it all just goes in and comes back out.
Well, and Mr. President, regarding this response from Mr. Popper, I think, he kind of leaves the door open for some further communication. I think, I had some experience in this. You write letters, and there's a lot of posturing and positioning that goes on. I think it might be helpful to invite somebody from their group to sit down with us across the table so we can look them in the eye and actually talk about some of these issues, exchange information, and really figure out how we can convince them what it is they're at, and let's make a run at it.
That's a good lead into my report, Alex.
Great
Yeah.
We did not coordinate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I the next up for Judicial Watch?
Well, no, there was some, just
We've
going
got
through
the
Margaret.
state board stuff.
Still have some.
So how do you want to do that?
Wall
We're
Street
reading
Journal.
through, everybody was sent this in advance, correct?
Right, well, the Wall Street Journal article has 3 subsections under it that Margaret thought were relevant.
Do you know?
Yeah, Margaret, I spoke to her briefly, but I think some of this stuff she wanted to revisit in September when she was here.
I guess, because I had talked to her too.
Yeah, I'll say,
Or just kind of her.
okay.
She does this as sort of her
What
bullet
she
point,
did
but-
want people to know was this isn't a complete surprise. That in fact, everybody was notified back in September of 2016. We didn't know the kind of detail that article went into. It was just that it appeared there had been a hack into the system at the state level and blah, blah, blah. And then we really didn't hear anything else about it, except nationally the issue took off, of course. And then the Wall Street Journal article really specified Maryland and the situation. So she has a presentation for that.
Wait in September.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've asked the state board to send someone to our September meeting
Okay, good.
to address
Thank you.
security issues.
State board even didn't let Homeland Security knows in 2 weeks what's going on.
Leslie? Is Leslie here?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, so I think we'll hold the rest of this till...
Excuse me, you asked somebody from the state board to come to the September meeting and talk about security issues?
Yes.
When is the state board meeting that we have to go to in the fall?
October.
October
I think
20-something.
we want to ask them also to address it at that meeting, have specialists come in and address it at that meeting. Thank you.
I'll do that. Okay, so let's turn to Kevin. There's a number of things Mary Ann raised some things, and David, to talk about.
Sure. Why don't we start with Judicial Watch, though? Obviously, you've gotten a copy of their June 30 letter, which is very similar to the earlier letter they sent, but it's different in a couple of respects.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Perhaps it's obvious because you're talking about it, but is that letter, if a member of the public wanted it, could they get it?
Yeah, sure.
It's already on the table. It's
Yeah,
not
okay.
public.
Great, thank
She
you.
has them, Barbara has them.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
And really, the significant differences are, obviously, there are 5 Montgomery County voters that are listed in their individual capacities as potential plaintiffs in their case. And Judicial Watch is, in this letter, asking for a response from the State Board of Election and Montgomery County, and requesting documents from Montgomery County as well. I went back and looked at, they have a reference to an agreement they reached in Ohio regarding what they view to be procedures that should be in place to meet what they view to be best practices in voter list maintenance. And I conferred with Jessica about those items that are contained in the agreement. And as far as I can discern, we're doing all of them. Now, maybe we're not using the specific service that they have listed in the agreement, but rather than using the X service, we may be using ERIC. The bottom line is that the items they have contained in their agreement regarding supposed best practices, we basically are doing those things. I had the opportunity to speak to Adam Snyder briefly on Friday afternoon.
And
he is the Assistant Attorney General assigned to the State Board. He's the individual who did the original drafted.
Can you tell us his name again?
Adam Snyder.
Snyder. Okay, thank you.
He's taken the place of
Jeff Darcy.
He is.
Jeff Darcy.
No, he
Yeah.
is serving in an interim capacity.
Got it.
Okay.
Until they find someone to take Mr. Darcy's position
where's he
on a
going?
permanent basis. What's that?
Where's Darcy going?
Jeff is going to do opinions. He's going to go into our opinions division.
Okay.
And so they are actively looking for someone to serve as their counsel to the State Board of Elections.
Hey, David.
I suggested to Adam, in the same sort of suggestion that Alex raised, which is, maybe the thing to do is to write back to them and say, you pointed out to this, this agreement in Ohio regarding best practices. Here are all the things we're doing here in Montgomery County, and we'd like to meet with you to discuss what you think we're doing wrong. I mean, at some point you got to push all your poker chips in the middle of the table, and rather than just saying we continue, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing under federal law. Here's what we're doing. You tell us why that's not sufficient. And I think at some point some face-to-face dialogue would be beneficial. And this is a group right in D.C. There's no reason why we can't meet with them to see if they have suggestions on what we're doing that they don't think is proper, that we think should be added. That's fine. If they suggest things that we don't think should be added. But as far as I can discern, we're already doing the things that they're proposing. So I agree with Alex. I think setting forth a response that says this is what we're doing, X, Y, and Z. We welcome the opportunity to meet with you to discuss this further and see what we can do.
And please come on such and such a date and time.
And see what we can do.
Do you suggest that we that the meeting with them also include State Board attorney?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. Now, what Adam said is he had not had a chance to speak to anyone at the State Board. He was going to be out all this week, so he couldn't get back to me in time for our meeting today. And he said he didn't disagree with the suggestion, but he said he'd talk to his client and see whether they would be willing to do something like that.
I agree with that, but I think the chairman of the State Board, because the letter was to him, their attorney, but the State Board chairman too, needs to be invited.
So you want to get that? You want to get that answer for us before we move on that? Or?
Sure.
Dave?
A couple of things. If we were to have such a meeting, I assume that would be in public, if one of our public meetings.
Well,
I don't know. No, I don't think it would.
I don't know. I mean, I think part of the lure of having it private or confidential is that once people file lawsuits, they get entrenched in their positions. It's a lot easier to convince someone not to take that step than to try to convince them to back away from it once they have, because then there's publicity associated with it, and it's just the psychology of how litigation works.
Well, wouldn't this be potential litigation?
Oh, sure.
Potential litigation.
Yeah, they're threatening that.
Yeah. And
but
we would definitely be cloaked under the immunity and the rules of evidence for discussions of offers and compromise and that kind of thing, which is inherently confidential when we're discussing the settlement of what is most certainly a threatened lawsuit.
Yeah, I agree. Dave?
I'll just say, and perhaps I'm a minority of one on this, Judicial Watch is a very controversial organization. Their settlement with Ohio, I believe, is the subject of the Supreme Court case that is being heard. So the idea that we might reach a similar settlement to Ohio would not will make many people not happy. I would think that if we're going to meet with Judicial Watch to discuss their concerns, we may want to also allow others, either as part of that meeting or part of a separate meeting, to express their views to us, because as you saw, I believe it was our April meeting, we had a wide variety of views that were expressed to us, from people who were very supportive of Judicial Watch's views to people who belong to organizations whose purpose is to oppose those views. And I would certainly, I understand the psychology, and I understand that there may be a benefit to talking to them rather than see you in court. But I do think that if we have a private meeting with Judicial Watch, there will be a great deal of public interest in what exactly transpired, and we would be facing additional issues, having to explain what happened in that meeting, or worse, not explain what happened in that meeting because it's the subject of litigation. you know,
May I then suggest a compromise, which is, at a minimum, start with a letter saying, these are all the things we're doing. Tell us why that's not adequate. Because these letters they write, quite candidly, are very vague. And they throw around, it's a violation of the National Voter Registration Act. They never, ever tell you how.
Right, and the
numbers are nebulous.
Right.
No one really can figure out where these numbers come from. And there's really nothing that really suggests what we're doing. They simply reach a conclusion. I would be interested to know what is the basis for that.
And they come back to the numbers, which may or may not be related to what they're complaining about. I mean, I think a letter is a great idea.
Ask specific questions in the letter.
I'm a perfect, obviously the board would have to review it and approve it, but my general approach would be, you've directed us to this agreement, regarding what you view to be best practices. Here are all the things that go on in the state of Maryland and Montgomery County. Why is this not sufficient?
How is that going to be different than our first response? It came from the state, but basically we prepared it.
It's going to give a break. I don't think the original letter necessarily went through every single thing when you look at this agreement they have, it sets forth exactly 8 or 10 things that they think you should be doing. And while I thought the state's letter was very good, it didn't go through, I think, those 8 or 10 things like what I would be proposing to do.
Kevin, do we want to break away from the state, though? I mean, the letter was to Dave McManus.
But it's specifically asking for a response from us.
No, I would prefer to do one response that we would be able to utilize, but I think at some point
you mean with the state?
We need to put the onus back on Judicial Watch to tell us exactly what we're doing wrong.
And we have a lot more standing for the second letter than we did for the first, since they're now specifically targeting us and asking us for information.
Go ahead. As part of the compromise, I'd like the idea of doing a letter with a list, and then say, please, everything you said, and we would be happy to meet with you at any time and discuss this. Put out that as a choice, and see what we get from them.
Why would we
I
want to give them an option
of
an off-the-record response instead of an on-the-record response?
Yeah.
I mean, especially if we think that everything we've done should satisfy the standard of what they did in Ohio, and I don't know whether
Then you're
that's true or
saying
not.
you think the letter...
You get the letter back and you let them tell you precisely
then
what the problem is, like Kevin was saying. And then, if it turns out at that point that there's a need for further conversation, you haven't foreclosed that option.
Well, Mr. President, I would say this. I don't disagree with much of what Mr. Naiman has said. I think that if we were to be in a position to actually be talking about a settlement, and I think he's right, that would probably need to be vetted, and it would make sense to have it at a public meeting. But what I'm suggesting is, before we even get there, to have a confidential, private discussion with them to try to convince them that their suspicions are unfounded. Because I think when you start inviting interest groups and people to these meetings, it encourages people to dig into positions and to do things that maybe if they were in a confidential environment, they might be able to speak more freely. So I think ultimately, if they weren't going to back off, or they were going to only refrain from litigation, if we agreed to some settlement, then I agree with David. It would then make sense. We probably would want to and need to have some kind of a public meeting to discuss this. But I'm suggesting even before we get to that point.
And I don't, quite frankly, I don't think this board would be the proper party for any settlement, because we're really
exactly.
The state board really sets the rules, so it's not as if this board could agree to a different practice.
I don't think we can.
Or procedure than is followed throughout the state. I do think there is some merit to pointing out what is being done here in Montgomery County and throughout the state, and at least seeing whether they will, respond to see exactly what they view as the problem.
Yeah, I think, let's move forward with the letter for now. We'll get a better sense of exactly, where they are on this, and, how they're going to respond to that.
So we're talking about having a series of we all agree that we
Conversation.
have a series of things to get this solved. The next thing being a very specific letter with itemized letter.
No, my only question is, do we want to do this without the state board participating?
Well, if the state board is willing to do this and, adopt this approach, I don't have a problem with, either
We
a
should
joint
get-
letter or from, Mr. McManus and have the Attorney General's office draft it and we'll provide it.
How do you read their request for this information, Kevin, though? It seemed to me they specifically
We
this
ask
time...
you and Montgomery County to
And-
please respond.
Okay,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it has to come jointly.
With the state? Dave?
I think doing it jointly with the state is preferable, but I think that if the state is not interested in doing it, and if we think that a letter is a good next step, I think we should be willing to ask the questions, especially since if we don't have authority to settle the matter, and we just have authority to ask the questions in order to clarify what their concerns are. We're usually not too bashful about sending letters, and I'm not sure why this would be in a different category. I think it'd be better if the state were to do it with us, but if not, I do think that the questions need to be asked. The only other thing I wanted to mention, well, two other things I wanted to mention. Alex referred to meeting with Judicial Watch versus meeting with these other interest groups. I just want to make very clear, Judicial Watch is clearly an interest group. There are interest groups on different sides of this issue, and I do think that we have the potential that any settlement with Judicial Watch could result in lawsuits from some of these other groups, and so we should probably keep that in mind as we're figuring out.
Did Ohio settle
you know.
with Judicial Watch? Is that how that works?
Yes.
And that's how they're...
Judicial Watch and another group, and a similarly aligned group, and then that settlement is, as I understand it, what was appealed, I believe, by some of these other so-called interest groups. So, I mean, it's going to play out before the Supreme Court, but I mean, we are, I think it's a good idea for us to try and get as much information as we can to find out if there really is a difference of opinion or whether it's just a question of they don't like the fact that the way our numbers play out. But I do think that we are getting in the middle of of a very difficult area. And the only other thing I was going to mention is that one other option for us to consider that may come after a letter is that a meeting with Judicial Watch be done through counsel and not by the members of the board. And that would have a very different, it would be a different scenario. You don't have any open meetings issues if you do it that way. And then our counsel can report to us at the appropriate time.
I agree with Dave. Kevin, can you run it by the state, yay or nay,
Sure.
and then
Let's
move
see
forward?
what the state said. Yeah.
Adam said he'd get back to me next week.
Yeah, run it by the
Okay,
state,
good.
and then if they're not interested, let's do the letter.
Okay.
Thanks.
So that's the first thing. Did everyone get the response from ES&S?
Yes.
Sorry.
I just have one more.
Yes.
Do we have a time limit on that response?
45 days.
I thought so. Can we?
When is that?
45 from when
45
we.
days from June 30th. Now, keep in mind, the state got an extension the last
The
time.
last one.
It's not going to take us that long to
Write a letter.
write a letter on this.
Okay, and can we leave this? Can we agree to leave it in the hands of Kevin as our attorney, working with the state board's attorney to fashion the response on this?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
Do you mean without our review or with our review?
I don't think we need a review, do we?
I disagree. I think this is one of the most important issues that we're dealing with, and I think that we should review it.
Well,
There's not a meetings issue. I tend to agree with Dave.
it'll get circulated.
Okay.
We're not going to have.
Okay, I was only worried about the timing of it.
So there's no August meeting, so we'll just do it. We'll circulate it.
Yes.
And get everyone's
Right.
input on that. Okay.
Thanks, Kevin.
So that's that issue. ES&S, I don't know if there's a lot to be said about this other than
Their response.
their response, which is disappointing, which is we're not going to be with the ballot marking devices for another election cycle. So it's going to be 2020 before we're going to be able to use these, which is going to be a problem logistically at early voting, which is we're going to have literally a ton of paper. There are going to be ballots, every ballot style throughout the county, and it's not much we can do about it. Their response was, very lawyerly.
And written by a lawyer.
That's what it was, and we never really agreed to do much of anything. So.
Well, I think we should be pleased that that the state board took this up from when several of us have been going to state board meetings and raising the issue and our concern, which really hadn't come from other counties. We were really spearheading that. But the president of the state board did follow up with the letter, getting it. It's pretty shocking that ES&S is taking the position that yes, they did in fact talk about these issues at that January 2016 meeting, and yes, they did say that these issues could be fixed. However, we never gave a time frame for when that would be done, as if we wouldn't be talking about the next election.
Were you at that meeting?
Oh yeah,
that's what I thought.
That's why.
And is what they're saying accurate? I mean, I realize that it's very lawyerly and picky to say we didn't give you a specific time frame, and everybody assumed that a 2-year time frame was more than enough time. But are they accurate when they say that they did not give a time frame?
Short of seeing detailed minutes from that, I can't swear to it, David.
Doesn't the state have a recording?
But what they just started that. They didn't before, I don't believe.
I thought that they recorded it privately.
They recorded.
I think the state
privately recorded. Okay, I guess they weren't putting it out
something said
publicly.
About the next election, Mary Ann.
Pardon me?
Wasn't something. The next
no, what
election
was said? They were making the point that they couldn't do it for the 2016 election. That was the big harangue going on then, because it was January, and of course the primary was in April, and But I don't recall, but there certainly was the
inference.
Yes, that it would be for the next election. We can't do it for this one, but we will in the future. But the future to them was just unlimited, apparently, and didn't mean the next election. But it's in this one, you notice they do specifically say by 2020 in those areas.
Well, you can only use that trick so many times.
That's right.
So that's all I have, other than, Mr. President, we have 2 items for new business.
Well, I know David and Mary Ann sent emails. I know they wanted to discuss.
I think we did.
No, one was David's, and I was going to say under new business, David's wanted to discuss the FOIA request that went into all the states regarding the president's.
It's not actually a FOIA request, but yes, the request for information. I did want to discuss that, and whenever you want to do it, Mr. Chairman. I mean that's.
Might as well do it now.
Okay.
Well, that's what the state said. They're not cooperating, correct?
The state's response was they were not going to produce records.
Well, by law, they can't.
Can they get it off of air?
That's what they said.
Right. The state's response was that
might be illegal.
It's right here.
And I would and in fact the state's response
it's prohibited.
Said that it's prohibited under a particular section of law, and it said in addition, disclosure of some of the information encompassed by your request may be prohibited under state and or federal law. I was just going to ask whether we were consulted about that, and whether you have any idea about that last statement about state and or federal law. I could think of a few federal laws that it might violate. But I was very pleased with the response. But I didn't know whether there was any opportunity to get any more specifics as to what they're talking about.
We were not consulted. The local board was not consulted.
Hasn't the President's Commission put a hold on any more requests at this time?
Well, the President's Commission hasn't actually met yet. It meets for the first time on Wednesday.
But didn't they put something out that they're putting a hold on any requests?
I believe they have, yes.
I guess the White House put something.
Yeah.
Kevin, I was looking at 3506 earlier today, and it's worded in such a way as I think you could read it to say the implication is unless a Maryland registered voter is requiring it and certifies these purposes, you can't disclose it. But it doesn't exactly say that. I mean, I don't know if there's been any cases that have interpreted this, but do you agree with Mrs. Lamone that in fact because it was not a Maryland registered voter, then it cannot be provided?
I think there are other statutes that also may apply.
Yeah, and Alex, I haven't thoroughly researched it. Just because it's not from a registered voter in Montgomery, in Maryland, I don't know that would be the basis, but I think there'd be other bases for why. Certainly, some of the information would need to be redacted, if not produced altogether.
Yeah, the reason I ask is, she doesn't really go in and explain or justify. She just states this is our conclusion. So.
Yeah. Kevin, do you happen to have 3101E available to you?
Is the election law.
Of the election article, of the Maryland election article. Because I looked at that one and thought that also might be relevant. It basically says that anytime that the state might give data to someone related to that, it has to be for the sole purpose of maintaining accurate voter registration lists.
Right.
I thought that it has to be necessary. The state administrator has to determine that it's necessary for the sole purpose of maintaining
an accurate state
voter registration list, which, this was not actually designed for that. It was designed for an advisory commission. It doesn't have that kind of authority to maintain accurate voter registration lists. So I thought that was potentially...
Absolutely.
Lawyer guys, does each unit of Maryland come underneath the state law? Could they go around and ask for every county's registration individually? And would the state law apply to every county then? Or could the counties individually give them?
It's the state voter registration.
It's the state voter registration system. But are you asking whether you could get obviously get a list of...
If Linda couldn't give them the list of people registered in the state, could a county give them the list?
No.
No.
That's my question.
No.
That all the counties come under that as
correct.
State.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And as I read 3101E, I think it also encompasses, David, information that otherwise would be confidential and wouldn't be subject to disclosure as a public disclosure. But states exchange the information even though it's confidential.
Right.
And the state administrator has to make a determination that would be to advance accurate list maintenance.
Which this was not.
Right.
Thank you.
That was the conclusion.
Okay, I think we're going to go to our polling place changes.
Thank you, Kevin.
Let me just, two things I want
Nothing
to...
there? No more?
Under
Hold
new
on.
business,
Well, let's see.
just so you have it on your list there. Margaret wants to propose September 19th at 7 o'clock for the public hearing on early voting sites.
When's our meeting?
September 19th.
Our meeting is September 18th.
I thought our meeting was...
Excuse me, 18th.
I'm sorry.
Read that date, please.
So,
Wait just a second.
Yeah, and are we talking in addition to
You're
our
right.
September board meeting or instead of our
September
September
18th. We'll discuss it under new
it's a
business.
public hearing, right?
Yeah.
Public hearing for the early voting.
So we'll get to that.
After the board
18.
meeting.
But how are we going to hold that before our board meeting?
No, after the board meeting.
When's the board meeting?
The same day.
So we'd have the
afternoon.
the
Two
board,
meetings in
have a
one day.
board meeting in the
meeting an hour or
afternoon,
two before
break for
the
dinner,
public
and then
hearing.
have a
Right.
public hearing.
Comment.
Right.
I'm not sure that timing is necessarily good. There might be some issues come out of the board meeting on that even maps, whatever. I just really we've never done that before with doing it the same day.
Well, we're certainly open to suggestions that
What do
we
you
can take
think?
back.
Does
Why don't
anybody
we,
else
after
have
we get through
take
the
the
polling
time?
Yeah, let's do the
procedures,
poll, because it's in
and
the
you
new-
all can- That was just the date Margaret said.
Right.
Is the board
New business,
fine with
yeah.
doing this at the 8?
I mean,
I do share your
I'll
concern.
be here. I can leave at 5
Yeah, we're going to discuss it right after this. Let me just,
today.
in terms of the polling place thing, two things I'd like to mention. Two things. One, I've been asked, and I agree, let's, in each polling place discussion, let's hold our questions or concerns until after the presentation of that particular polling place. And two, let me just, I was talking to Margaret, Kevin. I do have a big concern here, and I just, rather than go over it on each single place, I'm very concerned that the proposal is that we're going to be moving about 78,000 of our voters from one polling place to another. That's a tremendous amount of voters to make them vote in a different place than they're used to. I'm very concerned about the number of people that we're asking to move. Accordingly, two issues I bring up. One of the reasons we're moving precincts is we're concerned that at some of them, a voter may get the wrong ballot style. My personal view is, why burden the voter to move when we should carry the burden to make sure that doesn't happen? And even in a worst-case scenario, if, let's say, 20 voters got the wrong ballot style, is that worse than even 10 or 20% of these 80,000 voters not voting? I mean, people don't read the mail we send them, generally. They're going to go vote. They're going to find out that's not where they vote. Are they going to go to work? Are they going to go shopping? How many voters of the 80,000 are not going to vote because we've changed their polling place? And secondly, the second reason that we're moving polling places is the word construction. Is the construction, they're fixing the sign outside the school, or are they gutting the entire gymnasium? So I'm trying to see if we can minimize the number of voters we're asking to go to a new polling place, because 80,000 voters is well over 10% of our voters, and a lot of people are not going to vote, and the last thing we need is people to say, is this voter suppression? Why are we moving so many voters? So my goal is, personally, to see if we can bring down 80,000 voters to a much smaller number of people that we're asking to move. And by the way, it's not a criticism. You've done an excellent job. It's just that that's all the voters in Gaithersburg and Rockville are voting in a different place. And that's a tremendous amount.
Actually, Mr. President, only 4,000 are moving because of ballot. The rest of them is construction. Do we have control?
Yeah, but what I'm going to, on each polling place, why can't we vote there even if there's construction? Construction means they're fixing a door.
I want to ask that question. And who makes the decision that because of construction, we sent a notice you can't use this as a voting place, or do we make the decision there's going to be some construction there?
No, we're sent the information by MCPS. We had a meeting with them the last day of school.
It's a lot of
them,
voters.
meaning the operations director, the facilities operations director, as well as the director of construction. These are locations that they have deemed are unavailable to us during the June election.
But we don't know why.
Well, really the majority of them, Jackie, they're getting their HVAC systems redone. And we have to have air-conditioned space because it's June and because the state requires us to have air-conditioned space.
Is that a requirement?
Yes, okay. It is. Yeah. So, the school's position, I wasn't there, is that these schools that they've listed, for the large part, are all going through this HVAC renovation. They will not be available for June. This board's position has always been, I think it's a wise position, we're not going to move a polling place and have it one place for a primary and another place for the general. And that's where the issue comes.
I presume they're not going to start this HVAC construction till school ends, which is practically the time of our election. So if we're talking of a matter of a week or two here,
school ends June 15th, and the election is June 26th.
I mean,
so
come
one
on.
question is, can they start 2 weeks later?
July
yes,
1st, yeah.
Exactly.
That question was one of our very first questions, and we were told that the switch is flipped the night that school closes. So if we close on the 14th or 15th, meaning MCPS, in June, that would be almost 2 full weeks that they would not be able to conduct their maintenance or
That's
their
But compared to
replacement.
what Jim just
Yes.
very eloquently pointed out, we're moving
Yeah,
80,000 voters
people.
in order for them to save 2 weeks.
I'd like to suggest Mr. Subin
Who
would
flips
be
the
a very
switch?
good person to weigh in
And they
on
said
this.
the
Oh, I was going to
switch is
suggest that
flipped.
we talk to the
Does
school
that?
board ourselves.
Chris,
It's a big problem.
am I correct in that following the initial meeting with the school system, you and Margaret had a secondary meeting with them because the original list was far more extensive, and that we were able to negotiate on a number of schools to remain in those schools, but that these were ones that they could not be negotiated on?
This all happened in the same meeting.
Okay.
The list is far more extensive. I did not see the entire list, but they've agreed to suspend painting or plumbing or some of the work outside in the parking areas. But these are the locations that we have on this list are the locations that they feel they do not have the option to delay.
David?
Just a suggestion and an offer, because, and I wish I had known this a couple weeks ago, because I was at the school system for an event where I could have asked just about every member of the school board about this.
Excuse me.
I'm thinking that, we talked about having a direct conversation with the litigant. I think we should have a direct conversation with the members of the school board and the superintendent and explain to them why this is such a big deal to us. Because I think that before we accept this as being unable to be changed, I think we should see if they're willing to move their dates 2 weeks later.
I agree with you completely, and there might be some negotiation in that if they have to do more work quickly, maybe we can.
Even if we went from 77,975 to 58,000, yeah, even if 10,000 voters don't have to do
I think
more.
I agree
Or the other
completely.
possibility is that I don't know if there's a particular order in which they do their work, but if it doesn't have to be HVAC comes first, maybe they can do work in other parts of the building while we're there. That would be a pain, but it wouldn't be as bad. It may not make it uninhabitable. And try and basically let's explore with them whether there are any other options other than just an automatic. You can't do it.
And this flipping the switch, I cannot believe that in 10 days they're going to do construction on all of these schools.
No, I know.
When
I saw the numbers, I got really.
There's got a rolling start, and it's flipping the switch on all of them in one day.
What's our timetable? What are our deadlines?
These people will all be moved back again for the election in 2020. We'll be going through this.
Actually, I thought that Kevin had suggested, and maybe we should get this clarified, that they could be moved back for November of 2018 if all they're doing is doing this over the summer and the schools are not closing.
That's my understanding.
Then it seems like we're being asked to carry a lot of the load here for their construction program.
The voters, they're going to show up and they're not going to be able to vote. That's all we need. Is thousands of phone calls.
Well, we needed, Jim, may I say that it would be nice if, as ASAP, you could get a meeting with whomever you think is the appropriate people to talk about some rolling construction date beginning, or putting it off completely and doing some other stuff in the building, or some other way so we don't have to make any of these changes. Maybe 2 or 3, certainly.
What's our time requirements to vote on it and to finalize this?
We should really have everything done before March 1.
Oh,
so
we have time.
Our goal is based.
They're going to be signing contracts and whatnot to get this work done. So I think we need to get this settled with the Board of Education.
Right. But can we do it by September? I think what Jim is asking.
Yeah, because some are they're not going to be around, right, in August.
One thing I will.
Which day?
Like the
of course, they're
board.
county employees.
Yeah, the board.
Mary Ann, they're going to be around. They're county employees. sure they'll be around. And
Well, the staff will certainly be around, but and the board. I believe the board has always met in August.
Really? You think? Oh, okay.
I
And
would
what about the
What do you suggest?
say
What do you
that
do?
if you would like to go forward with this initiative, that we should do it immediately.
Yeah.
The sooner we speak to them,
Yes.
Right.
I
the
agree.
more likely that we'll be able to negotiate, as well as it might slow down a signature on a contract.
Right,
I
right.
don't
Who's the
know,
president?
but
I'll be
I
happy
know
to help.
they're in the
Mike Durso
process.
is the
You know him?
president. Yeah, very well.
I know they're in the process of making their plans for 2018, summer of 2018.
Jim, just so it's
What's your thoughts,
clear on the
Kevin?
record, I think it's a good idea, but just so it's clear on the record, Lisa and Margie have pointed out that this chart reflects that 56,121 are the temporary change, the construction issues. The rest of them are either returning to their original site, or they're a precinct merger, or it's a new site. So just so it's clear, of the 77,975, they're not all.
Oh, okay.
But
They're
you're
all
saying,
falling in-
but 56,000 is a substantial number.
Don't disagree.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't disagree.
But just to clarify that it wasn't the
Yes, no,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you. That- I think that's,
Thank you.
that's good.
So it's like 57,000, right?
56,121.
Another thing that I think we should also clarify, Mr. Subin was at the school board meeting with Margaret and myself.
and we
he
appreciate
attended that
enormously
meeting.
what you all have done.
Oh, yeah, no, this is
No,
nothing,
I
not a
understand,
criticism.
yeah.
It's just, now it's 60,000 people to be meeting.
And I agree, I like to maintain stability whenever we can.
My favorite judge wants to say something.
It may not be appropriate for me to speak.
Oh, it is now, it's okay.
But come where the recording can get you.
Believe me, they'll hear me. But the only recommendation I would make is that if you do make these changes, and I think you have a very valid concern, is that you will have a lot of additional provisionals. So you want to make sure that you incorporate provisional training, which is not that great in the first place for most judges. Really focus on it if, in fact, you have to make 50 to 70,000 voters move. Because you're right, they won't show up, and if they do show up, they're in the wrong place. And will they go to their right place? Probably not. They'll vote provisionally. It adds a whole nother labor burden and issues. So I
Thank
just
you, no,
want
that's
to
an
bring that
excellent
up.
point.
That's incidentally a wonderful point to use for the.
Well, let me ask you, who knows Durso? I know him well. I have no problem, David making the initial call.
Sure.
Just say, you know, the board's asked you to call because you know him, and tell him our concerns, and
Okay.
whatever, you know,
Okay.
we can all march down there, whatever, you know, whatever's.
Well, consistent with the open meeting requirements.
Yeah, all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But yes.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, no, I'll be.
Whatever you all think is the correct amount of pressure would be.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know Durso. I mean,
No, I know.
I know.
I know him well.
He knows him well. I know
Yeah.
him longer.
Okay.
I knew him in D.C. when he was
you can both-
principal.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
So that's
talking about?
the president of the Board of Education. I don't
President of
know
the
him.
Board of
board.
Education.
What's his name?
Michael Durso. He's a former principal in the school system.
But I
been on the
would,
board
David
for a long
knows
time.
him, and he's willing to make
No,
the
I
initial
think,
contact.
but
It's
you
great.
need to be there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
too.
Oh, yeah,
Been all
yeah.
over.
So in the
Thanks,
interest of economy, does the board wish to hear the full presentation or focus in on the ones that are not fall in this category of
I think we should. I think we
Let's
should look at the ones that we can move on today.
And not the
That would be my
others.
suggestion,
And not
and eliminate
If
these
that-
for now.
If that won't throw you off too much.
I'll set up a lunch with my
Well, so shall we go forward
Does make
with
that
the agreement that we won't spend time? Now, they are in the presentation, and I will flip through them as quickly as possible.
In a
So-
brief note, do you know on each one what they're actually doing? Oh, these are all HVAC?
I could tell you, I have the list here. The majority of them are HVAC.
I mean, even if we can cut back on 20,000 voters being moved, you know, anything.
So I think what I'm hearing is Chris is going to go through the presentation of all of those except the proposed temporary changes. And as we already mentioned, we're going to hold questions until the end of each precinct or location.
So we're not going to discuss the HVAC ones, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
I was going to start out the presentation by saying we've provided a polling place change spreadsheet, 2018 preliminary working draft, This presentation follows this list numerically.
Oh, okay.
So if you're following along, you will have that as an added resource. And some of these you will have seen in June. They were initially presented in June. So I'll go through 206 and then I'll stop for any questions that you might have. On our facts page, Precinct 206, Haley Wells Middle School, we're suggesting this to be a permanent location. It is in precinct. It will be the first time these voters will have a home location in their precinct. It's in precinct, it's a public facility, and it's ADA compliant. And I would draw your attention to the bulleted items, the checked items. All of these items are directed by COMAR. These are things that we watch for when we're choosing a polling place. This is the front view of Haley Wells. Little Seneca Parkway is off of Route 27, Ridge Road in Clarksburg. This map shows the relationship of Haley Wells, the Red Star, the new location, and Clarksburg High School, the old location.
Can I ask a question about that map?
Well, we're going to hold the questions till after.
To the end.
Okay.
I will go
Yeah.
back,
Okay.
Mr. Naamu.
Thank you.
Yeah, after each. Thank you.
I'll be glad to flip back if we need to.
Thank you.
We don't have a current aerial. This is the aerial of the construction at Haley Wells. It is a new school, as I said. It was open for the last school year. This is the no electioneering zone for Haley Wells. This is the parking for Haley Wells, approximately 125 spaces. This is the handicap parking, and you'll note that it is right across the lane from the main voter entrance. Now, this is the last slide for Haley Wells. Mr. Naaman, you had a question. Would you like me to flip back?
Yes, to the map, please. It's just that star looks like it's not within the boundaries. If that red line is the boundary for 2-6, it looks like the star is outside of that
Major
boundary.
road, I think
The
it says.
boundary is the blue, the box.
Oh, okay. So the
And
red is just
the
a
major road. That is 27.
I see.
This one here.
And where did they vote before?
They voted at
Over
Clarksburg
there.
High School.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Outside.
So they
Thank you.
are in
Yes.
precinct now.
Thank you.
May I move forward? Is there anything more?
Are we going to vote on each of these if we want to accept moving forward with them? Should we do that today?
I think
Was that the intent? What
I
was-
think if there are those that you approve and we can move forward with, I think the more advance notice, we've got, Chris,
Can we just say yes without a
Well-
major vote, without a
No,
motion?
there's that new law that's in place that requires us to give, I would suggest that
the
you all
new law,
vote
that's right.
at the September meeting on those that are you clearly don't have an objection with, and that we provide notice that there's going to be that
public
these polling
notice.
public notice to the changes
Yeah.
in these polling places.
So what we would decide now is just what to put on the list
So
for that
these
notice?
would go out on a notice and on our website and
Correct.
everything.
That's that new law that requires
Oh, that's good. Okay.
any change to a voter's rights under state or local law, you have to give public notice.
Good. Good point. Thanks.
Chris, would you
This
talk
seems
about
good to
the
go.
do that.
number of parking places?
We're gonna
Is
put it
there a
on our
minimum
website.
Put it on the
website
website.
you look for? What's the average? What's a good number?
No, we can't say that there's an average or a minimum. What we look at is we look at the number of people that we expect attending that polling place and figure out how many people we think are going to be appearing. And then we make the judgment of whether we feel that the location would accommodate the number of people that need to move through there, whether...
So this one's good?
I
Are we
will go
deciding at the
forward.
end?
And then a quick note regarding our notification. Margaret has already spoken to the staff and to me about putting a formal notification together early in August regarding our polling place changes, so that the public will be aware that this process is in discussion.
On our website? Is that what?
Mr. Board President, I just want to confirm this one's going to be okay to add
Yeah,
to that
that's
list.
what I was going to say. Can we then come to a resolution that this is good to go forward?
Right.
Yeah, should we move or
On
just-
the,
No, we're not voting on it, we're just saying.
Right, but
put
just a
it-
consensus
Yeah.
that everyone's okay.
we
with
wanted to go forward for
Yes.
public notice.
I think that one's
All right.
in that category.
All right, we'll move forward to precinct 0208, which is Clarksburg High School. We're proposing that this be a permanent location based on it's a better facility, better access, better parking. It is in precinct, it is a public facility, and ADA compliant. The address is Wims Road. It sits right on 355 North Frederick in Clarksburg. This is the map showing the location of the 2016 polling place and Clarksburg High School being the proposed new polling place. An aerial showing the parking, the no electioneering zone at the voter entrance. We do have issue with handicap parking being at the end of the building. Our voter entrance is there. We will be doing temporary drop-off and temporary handicap parking along this portion across from the main entrance.
What do we do, use signage? I'm sorry, it's not.
We use signage, and we have signs that will just designate that as parking for handicap.
Chris, why is the handicap parking so far away? Is that all bus parking up there?
Yes. If you, along here, this is to pull in the bus, this circle, and we see this happening more and more with the new buildings as they go up.
That's not a good sign.
Huh?
Flood alert.
Tornado?
It did not happen.
We're okay, Margie?
It never happened.
Keep going.
Okay.
I'll tell you if we need to evacuate.
Now, do we have questions?
I'm already missing Gracie because I know this was an area that she was familiar with. Why are we moving from the elementary school to the high school? Obviously, this is larger, right? And do we need the additional space? Is that?
I believe we need the initial the space, but the access at the elementary school is poor. It's at best it's marginal. Even the location, it's embedded. I'm not sure that many people are aware that the building is there, except for the people that have children attending them.
Okay.
So I believe the access is poor.
Okay, great.
A question about the handicap parking. Is it possible for us to use, since the school will not be in session, is it possible to use some of that bus area for handicap parking if that's the entrance we're using?
Mr. Naaman, we consider that lots of times because the curb cuts are in this area. I would believe you can see curb there, but I would believe this is marked fire lane. We don't have a fire lane here. But certainly, if that's not marked fire lane, that will be where we place the handicap parking.
So it doesn't have to be where the handicap parking is that we see in the bottom right of the
Right.
street.
If someone chooses to park there,
Yeah,
but
obviously.
we're certainly
Right.
going to try to make this visible so people will have a shorter distance to walk.
Right, I was going to say, yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
That's
really is
good.
a distance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do we want to move forward and put this on our public list?
Looks good to me.
Okay.
That's good.
Anybody saying, okay, so this,
Okay.
Got it.
move forward on that
All
one?
right, we'll move forward. Now,
Wow.
this is a construction issue. I'm going to move through Rockville High
That was
School.
good.
Your
Making
next
sure
one's
that-
Twin Brook Recreation Center.
All right,
Friday.
thank you.
Twinbrook.
So Rockville and Kennedy, we're not talking about.
Correct. This is the Twin Brook Recreation Center. It's 0427 and 0438. It's a consolidated situation. We, as you can see, have approximately 650 registered voters there. We are suggesting this as a permanent location to honor the ballot style. It is a public location adjacent to the precinct, and ADA compliant electioneering would be permitted. This is a photo of the building, Twinbrook Parkway. It is in Rockville naturally. We'll go to the map. They are voting here. This would be the proposed location. The people, the voters, are coming from this location and this small location here and here. This is 438, and this is 427. This is an aerial. We have parking. This is the no electioneering zone, and the handicap parking is to the end and right of the main entrance to the building. And do we have questions?
So the reason we're moving from the elementary school is we're concerned that voters may get the wrong ballot style?
That's true. We had multiple ballot styles in that location, and we're trying to mitigate the issues with distribution of ballot styles.
So my question is, why are we putting the burden on the voter to go to a new place? Shouldn't the burden be on us that everybody gets the right ballot style?
That's a discussion that the board needs to make. This is our suggestion, hoping to ease the situation with distribution.
Jim, I think what she's suggesting is that this particular precinct actually might increase the likelihood that somebody would get the wrong ballot style because of how many precincts vote in that one location. Is that
right?
But we're moving 626 voters.
Yes.
Can we go
Wait
back
a minute,
to
we're moving that
where
many,
the
or
voters
that's how
are
many?
located?
That's how many registered voters are in those two precincts, 27.
Two precincts, but it's in a third precinct, 407.
Because there is no viable location in 27 and
So
38.
it's three precincts together then.
No, there will only be these two precincts at this
Can
location.
you go back to the map, please?
Well, Jack, what I'm saying is we're moving people because we're concerned that we may give them a wrong ballot style. Why shouldn't the burden...
I get that. But
Jim, I think I have an idea. I'm very familiar with this area. It's very close to my office. The 2016 polling place at the elementary school is also out of precinct, right? I mean, because the voters are...
It's way out.
Is way out, right?
Correct.
The voters are, and I guess the dark blue line in this case...
That's Veers Mill, and that's the boundary.
Okay.
Correct.
So it looks like many of the voters are on one side of Twinbrook Parkway, and the Twinbrook Recreation Center is on the other side of Twinbrook Parkway. For the voters, I don't know how many voters there are in 438, in which particular building that is, but for those voters, they're on the same side of Twinbrook Parkway, and in all cases, they don't have to cross Veers Mill Road to get where they're going. So I think that in addition to a ballot style issue, this may actually be closer to the voters.
Yeah, it does look closer when you think 427 right now is going all the way up there to that blue star, right?
Most of this in here is open and not developed. Our developed area, our voters are coming from there. This has
There's a cemetery there.
Yes.
Well, they're not
Park
voting.
Lawn Cemetery.
Yes.
So most of this is mainly non-residential in here. Our residents live here, here, and here. Or our voters do.
Oh, that's why it is a small number. It's a small precinct.
600 people is closer to
And remember, in the best case scenario, we're going to have something like 75 ballot styles.
Yeah.
If you then had additional, we could end up with more, right? The way it is now.
ballot style.
This is for election day, then.
This is for election
So there's only one
and
ballot
we're
style.
projecting about
Oh,
75
yeah.
ballot
Okay.
styles.
Yeah,
well,
I'm sorry.
No. You want to move forward with this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Closer
Sure.
to them.
Okay. So move forward with that, Lisa.
Yep, got it.
Redland Middle School, I had proposed earlier in the spring to make this the permanent location. I feel it's a better facility with access and parking. Public facility adjacent to the precinct, ADA compliant. This is the photo of the building. It sits on Muncaster Road. And when you look at the map, it sits right on the border of Muncaster Mill. The existing polling place is Shady Grove Presbyterian,
Right.
where we've had multiple issues. This is the aerial with the parking, the no electioneering zone, and the handicap parking is right to the left of the main entrance, the voting entrance. And do we have questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Was there any particular problem with the private facility other than the fact that it's a private facility?
No. We've had issues working with the staff. For instance, one time they had construction. We arrived the morning of, only to find out that we were not going to be able to use the entrance that we normally do. We had to quick redo, so we had something available for handicapped individuals, as well as I don't believe the access to the building is sufficient. And we've had different voters asked to be moved out of that location because it's a religious facility.
But we also utilize a number of religious facilities
Correct.
as polling places. I'm concerned about this particular one. It requires crossing Muncaster Mill Road, which is not a very wide road, but is a road that has had a number of bad accidents and dangerous situations.
Very bad, yeah.
We're also asking people to go from within their precinct to outside of their precinct.
Two things that I could mention in regard to those comments. We can put a crossing guard at, I won't have a picture to show you, but believe when you go up to Muncaster, there is a path across the street. We would place a crossing guard there, as well as, what was my second thought? Oh, most, if we go back to the map, most of these children attend this middle school.
And where does precinct 804 vote? They're not going to be at the same place.
804, you got it. Sequoia Elementary School.
Okay, so it's not at the same place.
Sequoia is about in this area right here.
Within the precinct?
No.
No?
Oops.
Well,
sits
isn't it
right
odd that 804 wouldn't vote at Redland when it's in their precinct?
I don't know when the decision was made.
Huh?
Well, the other thing is there's a lot of residential homes that are closer to Sequoia than they are to Redland. Redland's at the extreme of the precinct.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Okay. How do you feel about the security guard there? Would that...
Any further questions?
I mean, crossing guard, yeah.
I mean, it's better than not having a crossing guard.
I know where that is. That's where Casey House is, isn't it? It's right near there.
Oh, I'm familiar with
Yeah, I know
with
that
the
area.
with the area.
Yeah, and that street is...
I'm not familiar with the church, so I don't really know what they're, you know.
And that you have to pay for the church, and this one is free.
But you think it was, I mean,
But
obviously,
moving them
we
further
paid
away
the
from
church,
their
right?
polling place.
Yes,
Yeah.
350 per election.
Yeah, you would think.
That's not unreasonable, 350.
350 per election?
Per election.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
How much?
350.
That's 350 for the primary, 350 for the general, $700 for the cycle.
350 per day or 350
For
the whole?
For the day for election day.
It's better than most because
Oh,
I
really?
think some people that go to school, even if their kids go there,
May
it
I-
still requires crossing the major road.
What is everybody,
I don't know. I mean, I just don't. To pick up on Jim's issue starting, you know, we don't want to move people if we don't have to.
right.
And I don't necessarily see a burning issue here.
Yeah, I tend,
For a total of $700.
but I'm just saying, my view is if we don't have to move, I would like not to.
And it does involve 1,800 people.
Yeah,
So I would suggest that we not do this.
I tend to agree.
Shall we go
Any,
forward?
Jackie, Alex, any thoughts? Naheed?
I just agree with your general premise, that the fewer people we can move, that the onus needs to be on us to work that. I agree with
Okay.
that.
Alex, any problems?
I don't think there's a compelling case to move this one. But,
Yeah, I mean, if there's no real need to move, I'd rather not
Yeah.
move.
Yeah, we won't go forward.
So we
with this.
won't put this one on the list.
No.
Burnt Mills, again, we had Burnt Mills and Springbrook together. We have divided the two precincts in order to honor the ballot style. Burnt Mills is in precinct, it's a public facility, it's ADA compliant. This is a photo of the building. The address is Childs in Silver Spring.
And you're not going to have it at Springbrook at all?
We will still have 522 voting there. We had 2 precincts voting at Springbrook, but because now the ballot style
Yes, yeah.
has become an issue, we feel that we should divide them. We had significant population to put in Burnt Mills, so we were hoping to divide them because of ballot style and put the voters of 505 in Burnt
Was
Mills.
Burnt Mills not available the last election cycle?
I don't remember why the issue. I really believe it was a consolidated issue. It was made, the decision was made to consolidate because for the congressional ballot, it was a ballot style that matched. Now that we have a ballot style that is creating issues, we think we should
Well, but if
divide
we-
the 2 precincts.
If we follow that logic, we'll be changing polling places every 4 years.
Yeah.
Every,
In other words, the issue
or 2
is,
years.
shouldn't the issue be our issue as opposed to the voter?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In other words,
Well, but there's
Jim,
also-
this is in their precinct. That's
Yeah,
one of the
this is
criteria.
actually. I'm wondering.
I'm wondering why they were.
Why
ever
weren't
voting
we
for
using
Springbrook.
it in the past?
And my question would be, what is the parking situation at Burnt Mills with 2,700 registered voters?
Yeah, there's a lot of people. 73 spaces is what it says here. Parking spaces.
Which is not
I'm
bad.
sure Springbrook has many more, but
how
but
long?
it's
How
further away.
long? How long were they voting at Springbrook? These people, do we know?
Do we know how long they've been voting at Springbrook?
We were just getting it looked
Janet
up.
was going to look it up in my book.
I used to be at a Romer out there, and I could have sworn they were split, and for one election we put them together.
I would say that
I
it
think
was
we used to
probably
be at Burnt Mills.
before 14. It was probably in 12 that they were put together during the congressional.
So we didn't have a ballot style issue in 14.
The turnout is the turnout on election day.
Would that have been?
I mean, that's a lot of people in Burnt Mill to have merged them into the
Yeah.
other one. I mean, that would have been a really big.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people we're moving.
That's the turnout.
But Burnt Mill does make sense as a location, I think. I would think people might be happy to be there. What do you think?
I don't know.
I see. It's a precinct turnout. Okay.
Do you know the area at all?
I do know the area.
I know the area, that's where
I
my
know.
kids went to school, was at Springbrook.
So here's our test. Is there a compelling reason to move 2,700 voters? That's the test for me. I defer to you guys.
Well, it lets them vote in their precinct.
How many
That's one of the
voters are there in
criteria
the
you're supposed to be
Springbrook
looking
precinct?
at.
Do you have
Right,
any idea?
okay. All right.
If they can vote in their precinct, that's where they're supposed to be voting.
Okay. Well, that's compelling.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Kevin, can you remind us, because I know that that the statute talks about voting in precinct. It also had a number of different, there's a preference for public over private, and like, what's the kind of priority order of those preferences?
Those are really the two big ones, which are you're supposed to use public facilities to the extent you can, and you're supposed to have facilities that are in precinct if they're available.
Right, and this is both public and in precinct.
Correct.
And I gather that as far as parking, that is that a legal requirement, or is that just something that we take into consideration as we go forward?
Well, we're using other elementary schools, and they all have about the same parking.
Yeah, and you're supposed to have,
that
adequate parking,
is going to be an issue.
So it's compelling that we're supposed to use it.
I think this is a good idea because it's the same.
Same
This is
thing.
permanent.
Okay.
This is a permanent change.
Yeah, and it's a permanent.
So
Okay.
I would say yes.
Alex?
The history behind this was during the census and during the redistricting. 522
Yep.
was split from 505. 505 at one point looked like that. During this last redistricting, we split off this portion. Then the decision was made that since this was the larger of the two buildings, we would accommodate all of these people at one building.
In 2012, we actually had some.
I see.
One was at Burnt Mills and one
So it
was just
actually was
opposite.
one precinct at one time, and then got split.
So the move was in 2014?
Yeah, because
14.
2012, they were two separate precincts.
So in 2014, we moved them together, left them there in 2016, and here we are.
Yes.
So we want to move forward with Burnt Mills?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Okay.
Lisa,
Got it.
Permanent.
move forward with Burnt Mills.
Okay, then we.
Jim?
Alex, I'm sorry.
I had another kind of general comment, and I could be wrong about this, but have you noticed in each one of these that we've been looking at, the turnout figure is either in the mid to high 30s or low 40s? I'll bet you if you go back to 2008 and you got the election day turnout for these precincts, it would have been in the upper 60s, low 70s. What does that tell you? That tells me that perhaps up to half the people who live in these precincts are voting early.
Yeah.
So they're not actually voting in their precinct. It doesn't mean that your concern is not a valid one, but I think the impact of early voting is beginning to change what's happening in these areas.
Of course.
Most definitely.
No doubt.
I don't know. It's an interesting point. Because in a presidential election, there's no way that the election day turnout for all people who voted was 32%. That can't be right.
Well,
Certainly not.
about 30% vote early last election, something like that.
I think we look at absentee and early voting together and say about 25%.
Okay, so you're right, Alex.
Yeah.
So in a response to David's question, the statute provides the polling place shall provide an environment that's suitable to the proper conduct of an election, be located as conveniently as practical for the majority of registered voters assigned to that polling place, except as authorized in paragraph 4 of this subtitle, be in a public building and be in the precinct, be in the precinct that it serves, unless a suitable location for a polling place cannot be found within the precinct. So, being a public building and being in the precinct are two big factors.
Right. Thank you.
So we're moving forward with Burnt Mills?
I don't think any problem. It's going to be permanent from now on.
As of May of this year.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay,
We'll
Brown
go on to
Station.
Brown Station.
Brown Station.
Brown Station is returning to their home.
903.
You got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Mills Elementary. Oh, I don't have Brown Station. I have St. Andrews.
No, we're going all the way down.
We're going to
They're going back
903.
to where they used to vote.
Okay.
Brown
That's a good
Station.
idea then.
It'll
And
be the
there's
next
an
The pink
one.
index in the
Yeah.
front of
It'll
your
be-
cover if you're looking for it.
It's the next one, Chris.
Yeah, we're skipping like 9 of them.
Chris.
All right, we're at 903 Brown Station. This is a permanent location. We're returning after renovation. We have a turnout of about 33% with 2,300 voters approximately. Under construction, it's supposed to be ready in September. Brown Station was voting at Thurgood Marshall. They will be returning to their home precinct 903.
This is a renovation, not a new school.
Here is a picture of the aerial. It was a
It's both.
It was a total, yes.
So they're going back home.
And this number here is, we've looked at the CIP for Montgomery County, and this is what the spec says. 98 spaces will be on site with street parking.
Oh, good.
See, that's the difference with Berlin.
And then on to the next.
Well, so we're going to move forward with Brown Station?
Yes.
Lisa, you got
They're
that?
going back
Right.
where they
Yeah,
belong.
they'll probably be happy they're
Wayside
moving back.
Elementary.
Right.
Okay.
We're going to Wayside?
Just for
Three
one
down.
election cycle?
We were going for 2 cycles, and we're back home now. So we will be back home in 18.
We're going to Wayside Elementary?
All right.
You're going the wrong way.
Wrong way.
It'll be the next one.
Okay. Wayside is 1006. We're returning home. It would be its permanent location. It is in precinct, a public facility, ADA compliant.
And this is a return.
And it's a return. We sit
okay.
on Glen Road in Potomac. This is the construction. It will be finished for September 2017.
Okay.
And we were voting
Edward Hoover, yeah.
here
At
at
Hoover,
Hoover
yeah.
Middle School, and we'll be returning to Wayside, and Wayside is in precinct.
So the precinct boundary there is Falls Road? So that, in other words, 412 is east of there, and
And
10-5 is each of there, and 10-6 is west of Falls Road.
Correct.
Okay.
So they don't have to cross.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should keep that.
Yeah.
And this is an aerial. The specs tell us there's going to be 100 spaces on site, and we will have street parking as well.
Good. Good. So move forward with that?
I know.
Wheaton Woods.
Wheaton Woods.
Wheaton Woods.
It'll be the next one. It should be, I think.
Wheaton Woods.
There you go.
There. Wheaton Woods is a consolidated situation. We are returning. It is a permanent location. It is in precinct 1343, a public facility, ADA compliant, and we will have electioneering there.
You'll have 2 precincts in there?
Yes. We'll go to the map, and you can see the size of 1370. And Janet, you could look up the population for me. That would be helpful. It is in Rockville. We voted in Aspen Hill Library, as you'll recall, last election. Our home precinct is 1343. Most of our voters are in 1343. Pardon?
You want 13.7?
Please.
I think we keep that because it's in,
Permanent, yeah.
permanent, and they're going back home.
1370 is this small triangle right here.
Yeah.
Is it separate because of school board districts, or I assume the ballot style is the same?
183 is the number of voters, and it is, at some point, it had a different ballot style. It is not a ballot style with this particular election.
So actually, is it saying that, does the chart say that it's in 2 different council districts?
Council districts,
Yeah. 4 and 3.
Where are you seeing that?
yes, it's in 4 and 3.
So 1370 is in one council district and 1343 is in another?
And as you'll recall, last time we talked about making a separation in the polling place with tables, separating the ballot tables so that the ballot styles would not be distributed from the same table.
Why is...
In this particular one, if you'll recall, we talked about the chiefs being responsible for distributing to the very small precincts. 1370 has 183 voters in it. So it would be the responsibility of the chief to make sure that the 183 voters that attended on election day would be served by the chief. He would or she would distribute the ballot.
Where does 1345 vote, and are they in the same district as 1370?
They 1545.
Because that
I
would make
believe
sense
that's
if it was in there.
Parkland Middle School.
Why is it in some places?
Parkland Middle School.
I guess this is
So-
only 100 people.
I'm trying to think of, I'm just trying to visualize, because I know the neighborhood where Parkland Middle School is on
Parkland is-
Frankfurt. It's not far from the library. It's
Right,
around the
it's
corner from the
in-
library. It's on Frankfurt Street.
It's in.
And we know with 1370,
What there is,
is their ballot style the same as 1345? And because part of what I'm asking is,
They have the same legislative. Same council district. So it's congressional, but they're different now.
congressional is different.
Yeah.
You sure?
Let's checking.
that'd be weird.
That would be weird. Because
They have
1345.
a different congressional.
They do?
Really? Because 1345 and 1343.
That's how all of these small, during this last redistricting, it's how all of these small pieces were carved out because of either the legislative or congressional district.
I see. So they were put together so that for the congressional, they'd be in the same. But for the but for council, for in the gubernatorial years, they have to have more than one ballot style. I'm just curious as to why. I gather we're the reason why we are willing to have more than one ballot style in the same location is because of the numbers, the small number.
Correct.
You know.
Ms. Ross looked up the number for me. It's 183 voters. And it would be less than that would actually be voting on election day. And we're going to be training our chiefs to deal with those numbers.
So do we want to put this one on the
distribute the correct ballot style.
Putting them on the list still opens it to public comment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's all.
What kind of notification do we send out, or are we required to send out about it?
Well,
Once it's accepted, you mean?
No, once we put it on the list, do we just post it on our website and we're done?
well, I think that the board will be considering voting on making these changes at the September meeting. Please provide written comment through the board website, or you can appear at the September meeting and comment.
So that'd be something that would go out through our
Right.
communication.
We have a media advisory drafted. All we're waiting for is the date of the public hearing to put in there, and then we can circulate.
And that's the same public hearing that'll also
early
decide on the early voting sites.
No.
The public hearing, my understanding from Margaret is the public hearing was for the early voting centers.
Right. So
Correct.
there is no public hearing for the polling place change.
For these,
Correct.
right.
But they can comment.
Because they
Public
can come,
notice,
public
opportunity to
comment
comment,
period,
Make public
Right.
comment
written
during the
comments
September meeting.
or
Right.
come to the board meeting.
I mean, my own view on this particular one is that I remember, I used to Wheaton Woods was in my route when we were using it, and it's a fine facility. I'm sure it's going to be even better now that it's renovated for 1343. For 1370, where they're going to have a different ballot style, I'm a little nervous about that because we've been, in other places, we've been saying that we don't want to have more than one ballot style. In this one, we are not saying that. In fact, it looks like there's only 2 precincts on the whole list that potentially have, more than one district together.
And there's you said 170 voters? How many?
183.
183 voters.
But we
183
had
voters.
several scenarios where we have consolidated. And if you recall, when we had discussion in June, we showed the room layout for a scenario where we had a consolidated issue with different ballot styles, and we
Right.
said we would have 2 tables.
Right.
One table would serve one precinct, and the second table, when I say precinct, ballot style, and then
Right.
the second table would serve the other precinct, the other ballot style.
I think you've done as good a job as can be done to separate them, except for the fact that they are still in the same place.
Right.
You know, which I'm not really sure what I think about that. I'm concerned about it.
I don't know what we could do, though. They're going to be
Right.
one way or another. It looks like they won't
We're
be.
not going to have a polling place for 183
No.
people. That, as Alex points out, will be less than 183 people.
Right.
And that's the issue
yeah.
with some of these small precincts. We have some precincts that have 7 and 8 people in them.
Right.
We really struggled with what do we do with a number of this size about opening a precinct to serve possibly 75 people, 50% of 180, 60 people.
Yeah. Well, I think we should move forward and just doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, see what the
But then
comments are.
Yeah, see what the
If
comments-
people are upset. then-
70, I have my statisticians behind me. 75 people voted in 1370 in the presidential general.
That's just a little
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I'm convinced.
So we move forward with Wheaton
All right.
Road.
We move forward with this one.
John Bosco.
Don
Look at
Bosco
that.
Thank
is
you,
our
Statistician.
last.
They're just moving with the
Precinct.
next door. You should have put that
Don
on.
Bosco Cristo Rey High School
Yeah, Don
would
Bosco.
be suggested as a permanent location. We had been discussing at the earlier meetings about splitting 1367 and 1368 back to their original configuration. Don Bosco is in 1367. We have been working with the church and with the high school in order to use it as a polling place. It will be in precinct. It's ADA compliant. They will allow electioneering. This is a photo of the front of the building. We will use this entrance as the voter entrance. We will use this entrance as the ADA compliant. So anyone with special needs can enter here and will walk in the side of the room. It is the gymnasium. It's on Larch Avenue. It's about a half a block off of New Hampshire.
Off of what?
New Hampshire Avenue. This is just a proposed boundary. This won't be what the boundary looks like exactly. The boundary actually follows Sligo Creek Parkway and Sligo Creek, so it is a wavy physical feature. I've just put the line in there basically where the precincts will be split back into two. 1368 will be in the northern part, 1367 will be in the south. Cristo Rey High School will serve 1367 and it is in precinct. We will keep Tacoma Park Rec as the polling place for 1368.
How many voters will we be leaving in 1368?
In 1368, I can't say. We're taking off an estimate of about 17 to 1800 in 1367. So there would be 2106 left in Tacoma Park Rec Center. We'll go forward. This is an aerial. This is the church, Our Lady of Sorrows, and this is the high school. The parking is about 200 spaces plus street parking.
We have to pay them? Is that
Yes, it will be marginal. I will tell you, anything that is part of the Archdiocese, we pay a premium for each election for insurance of $125. So it'll be $250 for the insurance, but then there will be a small fee to use the school. And I really think basically it's gratis, maybe some custodial fees, that type of situation.
Right.
This is,
Are they closed on election day?
they are not closed on election day.
They're
But
not
this
closed.
school-
The high school is not closed.
No. The Catholic schools do not follow.
What part
the-
of it do we use?
We're going to use the gymnasium.
Chris, have we asked whether they would be willing to close?
We talked about that, and they just aren't interested. One thing I will tell you that I spoke to them about, Don Bosco Cristo Rey is a program throughout the country that is serving students who are looking to go into the trades or using their high school as a work-study program. We've already talked about their students being part of our future vote and possibly being election judges here, and they would be allowed to be an election judge. rather than
Private
go to
school will
class.
not close. Because they have,
Well, they actually, some do.
Some do,
St.
yeah.
Jane de Chantal, for example, did. They decided they would close.
That's my home
If they
parish.
have
They
a-
did
I
close.
was father of the day for one day because
If
my
they
kids
had-
got off school. That's the only reason why I distinctly remember that one, which is they decided they would close rather than have kids with all the traffic on.
I mean, I think that potentially is problematic for both the election and the school, for the school to be open and have a polling place there. Although I do remember, I mean, I spent a fair amount of time at Tacoma Park Rec Center, and there were a lot of people there.
And of course, this is a high school, not
Yeah,
the Chantal's.
little
through
kids.
eight,
Yeah.
K through 8.
I have another point to raise. I don't know if anybody here remembers, but didn't we get a letter from somebody in the Democratic Party that actually objected to consolidating these two and said that unanticipated problems with traffic or something else, they wanted us to go back to splitting them up? I seem to remember that, but I could
I'm
be
sorry,
wrong.
they objected to consolidating them?
Because the decision originally was to
There
consolidate
was a whole-
67 and 68.
Right, there was a
Yeah,
whole-
we had a bunch.
We got a letter from the whole delegation, but was that about consolidating the precinct, or was that a...
We had one involving Garrett Park.
Right.
remember?
No. We definitely have gotten letters about this precinct.
But you mean this precinct?
Right. I'm just trying to remember.
Oh.
I'm trying to remember what the letter actually.
Well, there might have been
called
more
for.
than one issue, but I
Yeah.
seem to remember there was a letter that we got about this very situation, and they were urging us to reconsider and split them up again. But I could be wrong.
But we are splitting
yeah.
them. Yeah.
Barbara
I think
was
you're
in-
right.
maybe.
I'm polling place support for these, and it was across the street, and it was a lousy location, or lousy facility. So there
I'm
was a
sorry.
real reason to take it out of the church across the street.
Oh, okay.
But it's also a lousy parking situation at the rec center.
Yeah, very much.
And it's a very well-attended voting location on election day.
Yeah, I remember seeing
So
it.
I strongly
Yeah.
support splitting.
Splitting,
I
okay.
believe.
Actually, I have it here. I think it was Alan Banoff's letter of June 16th, 2016. He mentioned about polling place changes, and he mentioned 1367. Staff will review the parking situation.
But it wasn't this facility at the time.
Yeah, maybe.
And he
This is
he
the
wasn't.
first time for this facility.
Right, he was complaining about parking at the rec center, and we did a number of things
Yeah.
to make parking better at the rec center. We found parking for our judges that were not right in front of the rec center, but were like next to it. I mean, we did everything, and we also got an apartment complex to give us spaces
Yeah.
up until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean,
And we
That's
just
cool.
looked up the number of people that voted in 1368, 1367. In the general for 2016, it was 1,900 people that voted at Tacoma Park Rec.
Chris, wasn't this the Don Bosco High School? Wasn't this a suggestion from the mayor of Tacoma Park?
Yes.
When the
Yes.
mayor came in to go ahead and talk about coordinating the city's election with our election cycle and whether Tacoma Park could piggyback.
it was a
onto-
council member who was here for that.
Yes.
Council, yeah, it was.
Was it his suggestion?
I remember him suggesting, have you looked at this high school as a
Correct.
potential polling place?
And actually, it was the city of Tacoma Park their captain, their police force, did the initial outreach for me. And it was because of Captain Connolly that we were able to use this location.
Well, should we move forward with it? Let's see what the public comment is.
And
What are you laughing
then
at?
I'll show you the
My
handicap
son is giving me a
parking.
weather forecast for
Oh,
us.
what is it? He's saying it's raining?
Well, he doesn't know that I'm in Gaithersburg. He says, by the way, a thunderstorm is parked to your north and is trying to extend south, so be prepared for the possibility of a long-lasting thunderstorm. And that was about 15 minutes ago.
It's been going for over an hour.
Good job.
Should we keep this pace or should we?
Chris, good job.
I think we agreed
Thank you.
to
I
Move
have
forward
with this
one
this
other
one.
quick
Right.
comment before I
Let's
sit
listen,
down.
let's let Chris finish.
Mr. Epstein mentioned our possibilities out at Wheaton Westfield. I will certainly look into that and pursue
Good,
that
thank
for
you.
you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be one. It sounds like it could be perfect.
Thank you.
You know who you deal with over there, Kristen?
Yes, I do.
Put the light on?
We can talk.
Yeah. that
So
would-
we're going ahead with Don Bosco?
Yeah. So we're finished with that.
So we have 8 of them to go forward with, right?
2, 3, 4. Yes, 8.
8 that we are putting up on the,
Did I switch it and then you switched it off?
Good. What a team.
Jim, look at this one. It's just close next door to each other.
and then we have 1,
Moving
2,
it because of the
3, 4,
construction.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, yeah, so we're gonna go into the new business, and the issue is regarding having a public hearing for the early voting centers.
Early voting centers.
And Margaret's suggestion was what?
Margaret's suggestion was to, and again, early voting centers, was to have it on Monday, September 18th, which is the day of the board meeting, so that board members wouldn't have to come out another time, but to have it in the evening to accommodate folks who maybe couldn't come in the middle of the afternoon, and to have the board meeting at the normal time, thinking then the board members would go and get some dinner, and then we would convene the public hearing for the early voting centers at 7 p.m.
And would that be here?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you said here? Yeah, they're having it here, is that what you
So 2:30 here, and what time?
7 p.m. for the public hearing on the
7,
early
oh,
voting.
I had, not 7:30?
7 p.m. is what I have.
Well, first of all, going back, I only go back 6 years in terms of the board. We've always done these public meetings on a Saturday.
We do it Saturday last time?
Yes.
Yes. And I mean, this needs to be done for the convenience of the public, not the staff.
No, I understand, and I know that several board members had requested that, you know, an evening meeting would be more accommodating for the voters as opposed to a daytime meeting now.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, really?
So we were
Well,
trying
You
to.
think it's
I think
better
it-
than a Saturday?
between-
Well, an evening meeting or Saturday, but my point was going to also be the geography. I mean, I think that this location is not particularly convenient for people and not convenient for anybody who doesn't have a car.
Where?
Yeah, exactly.
Which one?
Here.
And where did we have the last one?
We had it at the executive office building in
Yes.
Rockville.
Now, I don't remember that. I remember.
We've never, to my recollection, we have never had a public hearing in Rockville. Now, I could.
Yes, we did.
Did we?
Yes, we
did.
did.
EOB.
Oh, was that one I wasn't at? That's why.
EOB.
I don't remember.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, no, we were there. I remember. Nancy
just-
Barr
Yeah,
testified.
yeah, we had a lot of public
Where did we have
officials.
that
Alex?
evening meeting that wasn't as successful?
That was at the Mid-County
Yeah.
Community Center on Queens
Mid
Guard.
County, yeah.
We
That's
also
the
had
last
we
board.
also had a meeting here in our training room in the evening on a Saturday.
On
It's like
Saturday
Saturday later.
I remember
Saturday.
that.
We had it on
No,
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. We've not had
Saturday
a,
morning.
we've not had
I
a morning.
still remember
Showed up to that.
Well, if we don't have it here, I'd rather not have it on the same day then. You know what I mean? In other words,
Well, I just think there are other problems with having it on the same day when that's going to be the meeting that we, the board, presumably. No, we won't.
No.
be
You don't make any
finalizing.
decisions.
No,
Decisions,
wait,
no,
we'll be
you're just
finalizing,
hearing public
but
comment.
here's another thing. We just heard from someone today about a new
facility in
Yeah.
Wheaton that Chris is going to look at between now and then, but we're not
Yeah.
going to get Chris's report.
Until that
if we're
board
not, If
meeting.
we're not meeting in August, we're not going to get it until that day. And then to ask the public to comment that evening is a lot if we've literally just gotten the response
Well,
that
that's
day.
what I'm thinking. We're not going to have our act together necessarily. And do we have other places we're looking into?
Really, what has been proposed, I went out to the
I don't
Roundhouse.
I don't just mean Wheaton. I mean, were there not other places around the county?
Other places that we have considered are all on your list and look for. Yes, this would be a new one. I did go out and look for you at the Roundhouse. We have been out in past cycles and looking at the Roundhouse. The Roundhouse I will put in the presentation, but it's not a viable location.
Well, if you don't want to do the 18th, you could pick a Saturday morning.
Is that better than a night?
Only you all can decide that. You're going to be the ones listening.
Well,
to
we
comments.
certainly got people when we had it then, but I don't.
I don't have a problem with either. I think that our daytime meeting is obviously not convenient for many people. To me, I'm very focused on the location.
Yeah, I think location's an issue. This location is a problem.
So,
So we'll have our regular meeting on the 18th,
okay.
and we'll have a public meeting the following week.
The 23rd?
During the
which is
week?
Saturday?
During the week or on a Saturday?
Yeah.
Well, and also,
day.
how much time do people need?
I mean, I would prefer during the week,
During the week?
nighttime.
Nighttime?
And then it's a
It's just
question
personal
of
stuff
where do
everybody
you
else.
want to hold it, and
Yeah,
I'll see
when
if we
you
can
want
get
Yeah.
the space.
I don't know if it matters, but we're in the period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
When is it?
Rosh Hashanah.
Your favorite election judge.
Yes, my favorite.
Two comments if I may. One is, in terms of, if you want public comment,
Yeah.
if you want public comment,
I
just
think
forget this,
she
then I would recommend, especially since school will be open, that you have it on a Saturday or a Sunday so that you get parents, because otherwise parents are dealing with their kids from school and they're the ones that you want voting. So I would say you'd want it, you'd want it on a weekend that would be more convenient for the parents. The other thing I would say is that if you're talking about early voting locations, and the one real question is what you're going to do in the Wheaton area, that you hold it somewhere
Thank you
in
very much.
this Wheaton or Silver Springs Civic Center, something along that
We
line.
asked them to speak.
Okay.
I know, but I
Okay.
If you don't want me to speak, don't ask me to speak.
Yeah.
No, I,
Thank you very much.
All right, so representing the staff, I'm just looking for direction from the board as to what day you would like me to see if I can get what location. And then I will see what I can do, and I will report back if I'm successful or not.
let's go around. Jackie, everybody's thoughts? Nighttime, Saturday, where?
I'm just sitting here thinking that Saturday morning I'll have to miss my grandson's lacrosse game. I think there's no good time. So I think the best, where we think we'll get the most people. We had a good turnout that Saturday morning we had it here. There were a lot of people that testified that day. Now, there was a
Was it
burning-
here?
Yeah, the one we had here down the hall.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of legislators come, and
Oh, yeah, we
it
had
was a
that
burning
meeting.
issue. I can't
Packed.
remember what it was.
A big room.
It was packed.
It was
Packed.
packed.
Yeah, but
No,
what
that was
that
the
issue?
that was the meeting,
That
the
was
board
the-
meeting we
It
had.
was.
That
That
was
was
no,
evening.
that
That
was
was
a-
evening
that
meeting.
was an-
That's what I
That
said.
was
We
a
had
5
an-
o'clock meeting
we had an evening
about
meeting
early
here.
voting.
Yes, we
When
did.
we were in the news constantly.
Yes,
special
it's very
meeting.
controversial. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, this
Exactly.
is not that.
And that's what I was saying. We did have an evening.
Yeah,
At least not yet.
We had a big crowd at the EOB.
we did,
We did.
and that was a
That
Saturday.
was a Saturday morning.
Jackie, so
Saturday morning, I think probably is a better time than most evenings.
what's the time on Saturday? 10, 11? What did we do?
I think we did 10 before.
What have we done before?
Alex, your thoughts?
I don't think it really matters, but I think the Saturday meeting, worked well enough last time. no time is good for everybody, I guess.
I think it needs to be over by noon. I think you have to schedule it so it's over by noon.
Well, and that's what we had done. We had said
Yeah,
that.
there's all the high school, well, not, they do Friday night football games. There's a lot of, like Maryland game, stuff going on. I think noon's got to be the,
Okay, 10 o'clock on a Saturday?
And where?
That sounds good.
Dave?
I'm just going to propose a date because a number of Saturdays have Jewish high holidays around that time. So I'm going to propose the date of the birthday of a great American on October 21st.
That might be too late, I think.
Chris, what's that going to do with our deadlines?
Yeah.
Because we have to make a decision at our board meeting on October 16th.
I thought our decision was
So
in
we
November.
stay in September.
Anything closer than that, Dave?
The plan was to do it in October, no later than November, so that we could start the process of taking care of.
When's Yom
sites.
Kippur?
and what's the Saturday after,
September 30th.
David, what's the Saturday after the 18th?
It's the 23rd.
The 23rd. That's also the birthday of a great American. That's Bruce Springsteen's birthday.
He's a greater American.
Is there anything wrong with that date?
September 23rd?
Other than a family obligation that I have, no.
September 23rd.
And that's...
But I want to back up on these dates. We don't have to have this into the state board till the end of November. Is that not right?
I will look, yes.
I thought it was something
But don't
like
we have to-
November 28th.
And
Or,
that's correct, but there's
But I think there's something that we need to. Yeah.
there's a tremendous amount of work that has to be done for each location in order to complete the paperwork to submit it to the state. So it's not just a question of you all taking a
I
vote
see.
and boom, it's done.
All right, if we have a meeting, if
What's
we have
September
our regular
30th
meeting
date?
on the 18th, the regular meeting date,
Yes.
the next Saturday will give us enough time to do whatever we have to do with the meeting and get it
Yeah,
printed
but David's
out.
not available. I'd like to see if everybody's available. What about the 30th, Dave?
The 30th is Yom Kippur.
Oh, I forget that.
I may be able to work around the 23rd. I'd have to figure that out.
I would also,
But the next Saturday.
what about October
That's-
7th?
That's another Jewish holiday, although not one that is
Which one
quite
is
as it's Sukkot. But I mean, but again,
It's medium.
well, but for if you're Orthodox, it's not medium.
No, but it's...
Yeah.
And then the 21st again is
Well,
after
David
the
said he
October
can,
16th.
I mean, if
Do
you
you
can...
think you could, I mean,
If David, if you can
and the
work the 20th...
14th is that?
Chris is pulling out the numbers.
What was
for
October
deadline.
14th?
I'm out of town that day.
But you think you can work the 20th?
Cannot be here.
23rd, you think you can work around, Dave?
I have to consult with my family members, but I think so.
let me pose this question, Mr. Naaman. Is there a better time on the 23rd that would work for you than 10 a.m. to noon?
It's
No.
Okay.
I mean, the
8 a.m. to 10. No.
6 to 8.
Yeah.
2 hours enough. Should we
Okay.
start at 9:30?
Mr. President.
2 hours enough?
I'm sorry?
Dates.
The comment regarding early voting approval. SBE needs our final approval forms and documentation in deadline, November 27th, 2017. That is the time that SBE has asked for all of our approval documentation be submitted to the
and we meet on the 20th.
And it normally takes you a couple of weeks to get everything together
do you mean we
once
meet on the
they've
20th? Oh,
voted
November
on it.
20th.
And if
correct?
we have a
put
public,
everything together.
and if we have a public hearing and there's
Yeah.
other
Well,
things,
you're gonna
if there's
have a
other
good
sites
idea.
So when
suggested,
are we
there's
voting?
other
When are we
research
voting
that
on
needs to
it?
be done.
Guys, come on, guys.
When are we voting on the early voting side?
Well, Margaret had hoped that it would be at the October meeting, but as Chris is pointing out, it could be as late as November 20th.
That's our November meeting, that late?
It's the
Yeah,
third
20th.
Monday of November is
Yeah,
November
20th, yeah.
20th.
Well, I suggest you shoot for October in case there are any issues that arise.
Yeah.
Is a Sunday out of the question?
Yeah, people go to church.
Yeah, people don't
other
like
things,
Sunday.
I mean.
Yes.
Some people don't like Saturdays. You know.
You feel comfortable with the 23rd, David?
I appreciate your asking. I won't know. I can text the people involved and.
Would you
let
like
know,
us to
but-
write you an excuse letter?
No, an excuse letter is of no value to at least to one particular family member. So,
Okay, what is the solution? Okay, what we are talking?
We have tentatively September 23rd.
23rd, 10, 12,
What about October
10 to
7th? Did
12?
we talk about October? That's still good, okay.
27 is
And
Friday.
you guys have decided that the 21st of October is too late.
It would be
Yes.
after the October board
Be
meeting.
after our October meeting, yeah.
Although we could maybe meet after the public meeting and,
Well, I mean, do you think a nighttime meeting is not as good as a Saturday?
I think that Jim made a good point about school events, and especially in the September territory.
There's a lot of back-to-school
There's a
night.
lot of
Okay,
school
that's true.
things.
back to school night. Yeah.
Although really,
That's true.
It's hard to know. Let's talk location for a moment. Are we going to try to get the county office building?
Yeah, that was a good turnout,
I
ELB.
will try.
Yeah.
Because that's also metro accessible
Exactly.
for people. And
I would
ELB.
recommend the
Yeah.
executive office building over the council office building because the council office building has just instituted additional security
Right.
measures. So I would
Let's try and get the
recommend
EL
ELB, and it's actually closer to the
council
metro.
has
yes,
bigger
they did.
security than
No,
than-
new-
Yeah.
than- than
Yeah.
the executive
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
New screen, new
Oh, yeah.
metal
Yeah.
You
detectors.
see it now.
All right, so I will see if I can get the executive office building, auditorium, and we're looking at September 23rd from 10 to noon.
10 to 12? That was the time?
So I need to get the room
Okay.
from 9 to 1.
Okay.
All right, I'll see what I can do, and once I get that confirmed, I'll send something out to the board members so you know it's ideal. And then I do have a media advisory that will change the dates and get that out.
Okay.
Any more
Yeah, we're
new
gonna break.
business?
Say,
New business?
That was a new business.
that was
That
it.
was the new business.
Okay, so there's no more new business.
Go home.
So
Okay.
we're not going to meet in August.
No.
No meet in August.
No.
So our next meeting is September 18th.
Yes. Yes.
Mary Ann?
I move.
Mary, we're not meeting in August, so you know. We're going to meet in September.
Okay.
I move we
As they
adjourn the
say,
meeting.
see you in September.
Come on.
Yeah, next meeting September 18th.
Anybody remember that?
I
We have a
move.
motion to adjourn?
Say second.
Second.
Adjourn the meeting.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.